Eddie.
Oh, I should do the same.
Boom.
Well,
Boom.
hello everybody. Don't mind us. We're just scheduling our tweets, letting know everyone's live. But that's what we do behind the scenes.
Look at the picture. The skull removed. The Frankenstein radio waves. But yes, we are here. While my other host used to say we are here, we're, Q word. First 30 seconds, right? So we have to, Anyways, we were originally going to discuss Fantasy Deck, which we will. We'll get to that. But
we should probably start with the news.
Yeah, we should start with the news. Earth-shattering world news. Queen Elizabeth has died. She 96?
96.
96. Yeah, it is sad. She was especially being in Canada, being part of the Commonwealth. I actually called my mother. My mother called me, and I said, the Queen died, right? And she starts crying actually a bit. She loved Queen Elizabeth, and I think that Britain is going through a time of immense instability. With Liz, I don't know how Liz Truss is. She's going to be more of the same. Let's face it.
I think it'll be just more Blairism, but with breasts.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, the UK could really have used her at her best, the Queen, and it's just another blow, I think, to British society. Whatever you may think of the politics of the royal family and the Queen. And of course, online we were saying before the show,
before we went live,
it's predictable. But
that Twitter was gonna go nuts either which way. Americans have always had a fascination for the royal family, both as a nature of celebrity, but also by the fact that the nation is explicitly founded without one. And it mainly makes up tabloid drama and things like that. But I think for many of us here, especially those of you who are listening and those who just sort of understand that Canada and the United States are originally just it's mainly Anglo culture and its descendants, and so the Queen, who had oversaw fundamental transformation for almost she was almost alive for a century. She saw it. She reigned for quite a bit of for a good chunk of the 20th century, the latter half. Britain is going through a fundamental change, and whether it's the news about those mass machete attacks and things like that, I don't know how much you can play. There's plenty that you can say about her, and I just will simply say, may God grant her rest.
Exactly. Yeah. May R.I.P. and I hope she makes it well to the Lord's kingdom. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm assuming is Charles going to take the
crown? I think it's Charles that's next.
Oh man, their worst nightmare. They should have just. I know they're all hoping they could just pass Charles by and give it to one of the grandkids. What's the good one? The William.
It's not Harry, so yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, not the. Oh God, people were already talking about this. I was listening in on the Moldovan Citizen Space, and I believe Real Z Ping was on it, and how you can almost predict that with Meghan Markle, they're going to shoehorn some political ephemera into it.
Well, from what I understood, she didn't travel to that. It was her husband traveled alone, which was probably for the best.
Probably, yeah. But no, I can almost predict what's going to happen. Even the hit job they did before she died, about how they're racist. That was disgusting in my opinion. But no, I do see mixed reactions. I do see a lot of support, but I do see the usual characters. I even tweeted about how the left irony cells are just they're viciously sweating over trying to tweet the spiciest take to say that the Queen dying is actually based and epic Reddit bacon sauce. But anyways, thank you all for coming. Let's talk a little bit about the implications of the Queen dying. Maybe, I guess, the future of Britain. But I don't know. I can't find a way to link it to Fantasy Deck. Perhaps we live in a schizoaffective society. Probably that's the closest bridge. But
Well, yeah,
yeah,
it's well, actually, I mean, it's funny because we use that word so often these days, and we use it in two senses, right? We use it in the sense that to label a conspiratorial, there are X number of things that I can find in my bread, or there are demons in my mayonnaise type people.
mm,
We also use it to talk about the disease, but then I also think we use it very much in the Deleuzian sense that you would find in
yeah,
Anti-Oedipus and A Thousand Plateaus. But then we always, and it's kind of funny that we're talking about Francis E. Deck in the midst of talking about globalism, just the general zeitgeist of the culture war and how current politics are going. We're clearly, let's just get the obvious out of the way. Francis E. Deck was clearly very mentally ill.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
He considered himself a
As a
targeted person.
yeah, yeah,
And when they found him later in life to visit him and whatnot, clearly he was showing signs of just dementia, and he had passed on at 70 years old, which is kind of an irony considering what he wrote. But
the people were going to be dead and useless by the age of 70.
yeah, dead and useless by the age of 70 because
yeah,
of brain controls and things like that.
yeah. Well,
But
he was right. Actually, he was 100% right. But anyways,
man, died at 70.
We'll get into that.
But yeah, so let's just get that obvious out of the way. I think that, like a
Yeah.
lot of other people, I think the contemporary analog a lot of people use is Terry Davis, who obviously had very well-known mental issues, but at the same time created an operating system that is still functional to this day. And he thought himself divinely inspired. So, I mean, hey, why not? After all, he says God can kick the CIA's ass, and I think that's true.
I think that's true as well.
Very true.
Yeah.
So, we win in the end, guys. Don't worry. But so yeah, if you want to know more about him, there's a website that I can link in the chats here. It's
Yeah,
actually
go
what I'm
ahead.
gonna do.
Yeah. Maybe can you post links? I mean, you're a Jenny, right? So
I have no idea. We'll find out in 2 seconds, won't we?
yeah, I'll have to make one then. Yeah.
But yeah, if not, I'll just put one here. I can just put it in private chat, and you can put it on there.
I agree, Zach. It's yeah. Two major things died. I think doesn't I think has a correlation with each other. Kiwi Farms being the last of the old internet, and of course, a last part of the 20th century being erased. Because Queen Elizabeth truly, I think, did link people, from that past world into the present. You have to realize that when she started off, it wasn't exactly horse and buggy, but it was pretty close to that era. Not, no, I mean primitive automobile to the internet age, and both were. When was she's born exactly, Prude?
96 some odd years ago. So I mean, almost 100. So a little
Almost 100, yeah.
So in the mid 1920s.
Yeah. And all the changes and transformations, but also I think being born in the interwar period, the changes for the British Empire as well, collapsing, in not in a silent way per se, but sort of giving their reign over to another Atlantic power, which Prude is very much a product of, and I think that it's quite interesting. I can almost remember the more recent Adam Curtis documentary about how the British handled, like, during the post-war period, how there was sort of like a dour sadness of little England disappearing, and like the empire coming home with all of these immigrants, and how British society was fundamentally transformed, and how, I mean, really, maybe as an American, you'll experience this one day in a maybe a hyper real sort of way, Prude. But imagine being a British subject at that time, knowing that you ran half the world, and that was just like taken from you all of a sudden. Like it's really, I mean, maybe not even the Romans, I think, had that feeling, because it took,
centuries.
Century, yeah, more or less. But to have the British like physically feel that, and to have sort of like whatever you feel about the monarchy, whether they are just a symbolic power or speaking of schizos, there you go. I was trying to look at Twitter to see the logo take, because the Lyndon LaRouche, like the British Empire is still in power and they control things. I wonder if the LaRouchians are still going to be posting about how the British crown actually are actually in power. So speaking of schizo culture, I don't know, but it's a compelling thesis. I mean, what do you think of the LaRouchian take that
I
the
mean,
Americans are extension of the British Empire. And
well, if that were the case, I think that the British Empire would have a little more say over what the Americans do, not the other way around. It's why like Liz Truss would probably be advocating for a much different foreign policy than just mirroring what the Americans do. But
yeah,
I think that maybe I don't think there's an analog yet. Perhaps there is in some places in the Midwest where it's been deindustrialized and brought to hell very quickly since the 90s. But there's always that meme, and I hate using this as a way to like signify a feeling, but it's almost emotionally pictographic. But there is a little meme of like one of the little doges, and he has a little propeller hat on, and he's right behind the Twin Towers, and he's like, I can't wait to grow up in a decade of economic prosperity and optimism.
Whoa!
And that's probably
brutal.
one of my favorites, because it's just I was born in the mid 90s. My father was in the army. I got to see 9/11 happen very close and very real. I lived very close to the Pentagon. My dad worked there at the time and got out during that day. Thank God. I mean, he was just a enlisted man, but nothing special. But he got out. Thank God. And from then, I've grown up watching two wars happen, draining American blood and treasure that primarily killed people that look like me. And now it's just looting the treasury and looting the blood and letting the rest of the world suffer for it, while literally this government appoints, homosexuals that have demonic literal demons tattooed onto their skin, talking about monkeypox. So, I mean, I definitely feel like whatever America could have been or was, or whatever narrative that was originally sold to you, you grow up with it and you're like, oh, everything's a lie. And I'm currently witnessing the death of people that made this place, and press 2 for English and shit like that. So I mean, but I mean, I can only imagine what the Brits had gone through. I mean, there's that famous Jonathan Bowden bit. What did they die for
recently? Total black pill.
I mean, 800,000 in the First World War, plus all the injuries, then plus the Spanish flu that killed millions afterwards. No one died for that. And despite whatever your opinion may be of my friend Paul Fahrenheit, he did post this excellent picture on Telegram a while back, and it was a picture of memorials from Korea, World War II, World War I, and the Civil War. And he said, look at those last names and tell me whether or not you belong here. And I'm pretty sure that's probably how a lot of people in England might feel right about now, in the midst of dealing with that festival that led to deaths, or that the cops can't do anything. People are getting arrested for, pronoun issues and whatnot, or even getting
making hateful tweets on Twitter. I'm sure. Sure Montgomery's army, I'm sure they died so that you can get arrested. The grandson of the British Empire can get or great grandson now can get arrested for tweeting. Never mind. You know.
And just at the end of the day, Enoch Powell was right.
100%. I think Mosley was. Oh no! Shut it down. No. Oh man, it's funny. A lot of people, even in right wing circles, are kind of like crossed on the legacy of Oswald Mosley. But no, Enoch Powell isn't logo coming up as a schizo. But apparently him and his best friend capped my thread, and Orrin McIntyre and Nightmare Vision saying how stupid our tweets were, that Biden is LARPing authoritarian aesthetics when he himself is a sclerotic husk. So I want, for a guy who left the scene, he's very obsessed with the scene. So I don't know. But anyways, yeah, it is quite tragic, what's going on right now. And I feel that the discourse around the Queen's death, my biggest fear is that there will be no sanctity to it. The politics will immediately be dragged out, and you'll have even now, okay, listen, he's evil. He runs this world. He's terrible. I think that, his thing should be destroyed. But even Jeff Bezos responded to what does Morgoth call it in England? The woke the skintellectuals, is that what they call the term?
I think so.
Yeah, saying how a head of a G-word idol monarch died, and and then even Jeff Bezos replied saying that I think these people are bad, that I think these are not the good people, Well, your nightmare is already happening, Gia. Well, that's very true. I mean, unlike Prudentialist here in Canada, I had no hope. I had no illusions of things being better. No, I shouldn't say that. Harper, I hate to say it. Listen, I disagree with him. He was Lulbert in a bit. He was basically he would be like what's the equivalent of a rhino? What's even worse, like a blue dog, right? Democrat. But I gotta admit, Stephen Harper's reign was all right. It was pretty decent by hindsight of looking at Justin Trudeau. So I can't bash Harper too much, But it's funny because my good friend Kevin Michael Grace had a good tweet the other day where he said that, I hope Jean Charest gets the nomination because then people won't have the illusion of an actual functioning conservative party, unlike with Pierre Palavra. So maybe, I don't know, that's the accelerationist, but enough about politics. We are celebrating the Queen's death, and we are also not celebrating the Queen's death. I'm sorry. We're celebrating her legacy, unlike other ghouls that are celebrating her death. But we are also celebrating the life of Francis C. Deck. So I'm consciously waiting for the LaRouchian schizo tweets about how the Queen isn't actually dead. She still controls America. And,
I saw, no, I shit you not, like 5 minutes ago before we went live, someone on Telegram had shared an account with, said like the Queen, but like the Q and Queen had parentheses around it. It's like, my reign's not over yet. And I was just like, Jesus H.
No.
There's, the dead can't rest.
Yeah, the dead can't rest. Exactly. But we'll see. I mean, like, I hate to say it, the discourse around it will be entirely predictable. But before to get to that, let's do the shilling. And also, Sneed those super chats, please. I haven't
already got
enabled.
one.
You people. Oh, thank you. I missed one. Oh, there we go. Should we just wait till the end to read them?
Sure. Whatever you want.
Yeah. This one's pertinent though, because I think that we'll get deck ones later on. So Monothalamos. Wait, I'm trying to pronounce it. Monoflathmos. I please, if I'm butchering it, friend, I'm very sorry. For $5. God save the Queen. Long live the King. Fiat monarchia et parat mundus. Is that live the monarchy? And I'm not brushed up on Latin. But thank you very much, my friend. Yes, long live the King. God save the Queen. Skips the shilling. This is what's wrong with you Americans. Oh my God. Oh wait, I didn't put it up. What am I doing? Wait, let me find the here it is. Sorry, I forgot to put it up. There you go. What is the translation of that? I should be brushed up on Latin. I only understand a few words there. But yes, need those super chats. So as for shilling, really quickly, yesterday I released the content-minded episode with my good friend Ryan Stone and our good friend Red Hawk. And I believe I mentioned you as well, Prude. But I don't know if I was skittish if I wanted to release that public information.
I should probably listen then.
Yeah, you read a certain book by a certain very
I did. No, I did. I've said
you
that.
say in public you read the
No, I've said it on your show before that I've read The Rational Male back in college.
Yeah.
No,
so I mentioned how you read The Rational Male.
Well, yeah. I mean, if anyone wants to know my history, I have a Substack post called Chased, where it's just like I definitely got into that stuff and slept around before looking back and kind of having a different opinion on it. But yeah.
Yeah, let me post that link. So that is my shilling next week. You know what? I'm just gonna release it. I have a bit of a backlog still, but next week I'm going to release the Raw Egg Nationalist episode of Content Minded. It's gonna be amazing. Also, that's gonna be amazing. But also, I'm almost at 4K subs on YouTube. So please, if you haven't already subscribed, it's going to be amazing. 4K. I don't know if I'll do something special with that, but I can't believe I almost have 4K. It's pretty good. So yeah, that's my shilling. Next week, Raw Ignatius, but please go after this stream. I'll put it in the chat. Listen to the Content Minded episode 17 with Ryan Stone and Red Hawk. It's called Manosphere Mania. I just popped it in the chat right now. So Prudentialist, you've also been a busy beaver. How was your Labor Day with the GF?
It was.
How's that going?
It was good. It was good. And I'll leave it at that. As for my shilling, I have another wonderful fishing video out. Just some thoughts on the ongoing cultural issues of our attention economy and how it has a problem to deracinate the mind and leave people very despondent, and ways I think that we can deal with that. So that's on my channel. This Sunday, we'll be taking a look at Richard Haas, who is actually the president of the Council of Foreign Relations. It used to be the George W. Bush administration. But he wrote this piece not too long ago, the other day, about America's problems with foreign policy abroad because it can't keep itself together. So we'll be examining that because this is more or less a reiteration of his 2014 book, Foreign Policy Begins at Home. So we're going to take a look at the very old concept that is as old as the Roman Empire. Spangler had mentioned it in The Decline of the West, that the way you act abroad is only the extension of the way you govern at home. So we'll be taking a look at the innards of America before we can look outwardly. So that'll be this Sunday. And then on the Friday, and this is the last thing I'll shill for right now, Friday, the 23rd of September, I will have my good friend T.R. Hudson on to talk about his book, Automaton, which has been reviewed widely by quite a few friends and quite a few political websites and blogs. So if you want to find out more about that, he'll be on the 23rd, that Friday. We'll be talking about his book, self-publishing, and all so much more. So that's my shilling for right now.
And also I recorded an excellent podcast with Scott Manny on the Greenwood channel. He was on Count Dankula recently, about Heidegger and the work of art. We also covered memes. I had to explain to him what the Chud Jack was. So that's gonna be great. It's one of the best podcasts I've ever recorded. And also last week, if you go to my community tab, or if you go to my Telegram, or even on Twitter, it's kind of hard to find because I'm obsessive tweeter, but on Telegram, and please, I'm almost at 1K on Telegram too, so please subscribe to my Telegram, link in the description. Go to Prude's subscribe star, and of course go to my Patreon. I'm going to release another 2 hours of Giant Art reviews probably tomorrow I'm almost done Psychopolitics, but the last 2 chapters are special, so I'm going to have to do something a bit more in-depth with them, because that's where he gets into the solutions a little bit. So Giant Reviews on patreon.com, Patreon exclusive. I will release teaser clips. I have some rants in there for them. One is about Noam Chomsky. The other is about, I believe, e-dating or something like that. So, by the way, I had a Zoomer Top Sadie drop into my DMs recently. That, not to say anything.
There's hope for
let's
you.
Say she's not. Let's say we're of the same ethnic stock, and she also is a citizen of this non-country of ours. So we'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens. But no, I'm kidding. She's a bright young kid. Not too young. She's in there. Don't worry about it. Don't
want the Leonardo DiCaprio accusations flying your way.
Exactly. But anyway,
one thing though, to answer in chat, he asked, is Automaton a poli-sci book or is it fiction? It is fiction.
Yeah,
it's not a political book. I mean, there's some themes in it that are explicitly political, but I mean, it's a very good dystopian science fiction tale, very gritty, very realistic, about UAVs and things like that. You'll love it.
Oh yeah. I have my copy. I gotta get that Trusty Jill. Please don't. She's a tradcath. She's very, very bright woman. Anyways, I'll say no more. E-girls like Gio more than they realize. Maybe, hopefully, we'll see.
I do have to laugh at that thread all out of nowhere that Zero HP Lovecraft is just like, introduce all these women to Gio.
Yeah. No, I think like I wanted to write down about the discourse about availability going on, and I wanted to address a bit of Freya's thread there. Because I think lost in my lonely inceldom, we kind of neglect that there are women who are a bit more homelier, but yet could probably make good wives and mothers that end up having to become girl bosses or some such nonsense, because a lot of men are kind of picky and choosy. But then it's funny because then you see all the gripers and anime people responding to her saying that this is not true. But I can see both sides of it. Well, maybe we'll talk about a little bit more when we think about next week's show. But before we move on, I'm almost at the 4-week mark with intermittent fasting, and also trying to ease into the keto. So hopefully by this time next year, I will be a bit different. Maybe a bit more than different, hopefully. So, especially if I want a, Zoomer top seed. I can't even say it. God bless Thomas 777. Gio tweets once about hating women. Now he's a GF. Many such cases. No, I don't have a GF. It's just, I should tweet about hating women more. No, I'm kidding. Listen, I'm too wholesome chungus to actually truly hate women. So, we'll see.
That's a good news.
And also, I see the aces in the chat, who I also am going to record a content-minded episode soon. There's this clip where literally the first day, before we get on to Francis E. Deck, literally the first day Ace goes to university, he spills his spaghetti all over. He gives a lecture to his class about boomers and how they're evil, and someone on the TV screen behind him pulls up his YouTube channel. Ace is kicked out of university. Ace is doxxed. Ace's life is ruined. His mother's crying as we speak. And because his friends asked Ace, Aaron, who is that older gentleman behind, you're interviewing? What symbol is that he's wearing on his jacket there? Why is he talking about the Nuremberg trials, Ace? Why? Oh, man, it's over, Ace Bros. It's over. Literally the first day of university, he's got to spill his... If you don't get kicked out of university... Oh.
Yeah. Good Lord.
See, this is why I've been fasting for almost 16 hours now. This is why I'm high energy. And it's all new. Oh, it's all nuanced. It's all new. Woo! That was a Ric Flair woo right there. Anyways.
Not bad for getting 30 minutes in.
Yeah, I know, eh? Whoa. Anyways, let's move on. I have this vision. It's funny because Ace, he tried to play it off kind of like in the Nick Fuentes, okay. And they're like, Ace, is that you? He's like, oh, yeah, it's my YouTube channel. Do not research my YouTube channel. Oh, don't look up Thomas 777. Oh, man, Ace, why are you interviewing this old guy? He looks like my uncle, Okay, Francis E. Deck, Esquires. I gotta calm down. You go ahead, Prude. What was your first? How did you discover Francis E. Deck? What's your first impression? Go for it, bro.
So I first heard the Doc Britton rants back in college. I was at a party. Someone had played them. They're like, listen to this. And of course, everyone and their mother has done some kind of remix of these rants.
Yeah.
But that's how I heard. But then after that, it sort of fell out my wayside to them. But I kind of came back to those rants, I want to say start of 2020, when things started getting weird, because I was just like, I remember listening to this. And then I found out this wasn't some just weird dramatic radio performance, but these were the actual written rants of somebody. And it sort of all kind of coincided with everything that's happened over the last couple of years when we talk about gang stalking or Terry Davis and things like that. So it's just he's sort of one of the like you had mentioned in the description of today's stream, just the OG schizoposter. Very much mentally ill, very much had some very strange opinions, and lived a life very much that was not in conjunction with reality at all, both based upon, his life as a lawyer and the things that he had endured. Not to mention like the fame that he's had, throughout all of his life and since his death.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I thought it was worth talking about just because I just think about where we are now with an age of mass surveillance, especially since 2013 onward with all the leaks. Things are, there probably is a worldwide computer algorithm that is making sure everything that I say is being listened to. Every advertisement can be targeted based upon what I discuss. And yeah, so why not? We're trying to create omnipotence on Earth. So I thought it'd be very fitting to talk about today. If you want to know more about him, I will tell you what, though. There is a fantastic documentary, Toad McKinley.
Toad McKino. Yeah.
I mean, it's 2 hours long, and I mean, it goes over everything. So if you haven't watched that, there's some required homework for you. It's really worth it. Definitely worth listening to. So yeah.
Please donate money or even I love his Griffith. Love is kind of like a beautiful boy, I guess. Donate money or even a manual typewriter for your only hope. You know what's funny is that there was this body positivity, like a black Twitter account that had this rant about how the doctors are oppressing her. And I thought it was funny to like read it. I have the recording to like read it in the style of Francis E. Deck, but like to put the air raid siren and everything in the background. It's like maybe I'll release that, but I don't know, it'd be kind of mean. Anyways, yeah. So there also is, I did this hour-long podcast with Jeffrey Schollenberger where we explicitly talk. So after the stream, go and listen to it. I'll put it in the chat, but I'll probably put it in the show notes, where we go into more Francis E. Deck in relation to technology and how we also cover a bit about Deleuze and Guattari's notion of schizoculture. But I think that me and Prude here, what we were talking about, we're going to focus more on the actual rants themselves because me and Jeffrey, and by the way, Jeffrey Schollenberger will be on Content Minded. I'm hoping this month I'll record with him. Me and Jeffrey go into more of the technological aspect of Francis E. Deck, but here we're going to go into the meat of some of his rants without getting, too bannable in terms of the content.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not from a Slovene part of the world, if you're not Polish, get ready for some hardcore racism. But we'll try our best to keep it clean because Gio and I like our channels and like being on YouTube.
Like being on
YouTube. And like your super chats, of course. But
of course, yeah. He's got a whole like very Baroque racial theory.
Oh yeah.
A lot of schizo posters.
He's like a Polish Hotep almost.
Yeah. He's like, it's like, imagine if Wignats didn't like worship like Nords and Germanics, instead they worship Slavs. That'd be like,
I guess it's funny if you look him up, if you read his short little Wikipedia page, you get so you get persecutory delusions, Tartary, and then this lovely little art. This doesn't have a link to it, but I kind of want to just read the literature. It's called Turboslav, another theory claiming historical Polish world domination, and that's a rabbit hole that I desperately want to go down.
He truly is one of the basest men alive. It's funny because on that note, I remember Bronze Age Pervert when the Caribbean Rhythms episode with Stone Age Herbalist. There's actually Slavic, usually Serbian, and usually Polish anthropologists that say that like all of these historic figures, a lot of it's like pseudo stuff, right? They're outside of the academy.
Oh yeah, like the missing millennia or missing time theories and things like that. There's a lot of alternate, saying like,
Alexander the Great was actually
some guy in Asia Minor was actually the historically real Jesus who had died sometime in like 1649 or whatever. Like people with very alternate forms of historiography. I mean, there's even one, I think it is called Tataria, where it's like there was actually an ancient civilization akin to like the Romans that lived in America, and that the United States is like the spiritual reincarnation of that. So I mean, there's
Oh,
definitely a lot in there that you're going to get.
I wonder what is the ethnic makeup of Mormons? Are they original American like English or they're like Dutch, Irish? Or, I wonder.
I do not know enough to give you an answer.
Because that sounds like Mormonism,
I
like
mean, the
you know,
only the
Christ.
only the only Mormons that I really like are John Moses Browning.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Like no, but I wonder though, because that does sound like Mormon, like Jesus visited America one time.
yeah,
So I mean, it could be true. I mean, I don't. Probably not. I don't
cue
want
the
to offend
cue the
more.
Mormon Jesus remix
Yeah,
video.
yeah. I have a lot of Mormon friends. I don't want to piss them off, but you know, I mean,
Oh, same.
um,
There's a lot of mutuals with, but not for
yeah.
me.
Orson Scott
Well, yeah,
Card
he's
deceased. Yeah,
he's
he got
also the Latter
canceled.
Day Saints.
Yeah, there's a lot of visual artists. There's a lot of plein air painters who are Mormons because apparently one of the only art schools that isn't like a theory driven, you know, what people mean by art school now, like contemporary art. One of the only ones that actually teaches you in an atelier style is from Brigham Young University. So a lot of landscape and plein air painters actually are Mormon in America. So
Well,
yeah,
speaking of, I'm not going to do the Doc Britton style of reading these things. I think Gio's got the better energy for it. I'm going to try and read these to you in ways that are palatable for public
these
radio.
hangman rope, sneak deadly gangsters. But no, the reason we mention this is because I think, and even like me and Jeffrey Schellenberger overlooked it a little bit,
Yeah,
is that the racial theory of Francis C. Deck is important to the schizo posting in the sense that he believes that the Polish Slavoidic, quote unquote, Slavoidic races created the gangster communist computer god not at the October Revolution, 300 years ago to calculate numbers. But then the Slavic people, they sort of like the computer god uh, ran away from them or something,
basically
and
gain sentience.
it gained sentience. It went into a replication field in the exosphere above planet Earth. There is a gaseous envelope, and the computer replicates our consciousness. Each individual human being that is born has an analogous computer past this firmament gaseous envelope that beams into
Behind
our
the
conscious,
moon.
blinds the moon behind the moon, beams into our consciousness, then our consciousness beams back to the computer god. But only he was able to see this, though. He managed to break the conditioning. So the racial theory, though, because and this is base territory right here. Trying to have to say it without getting banned. He believed that there's going to be a, and this computer god's creating this, a one world um mixed race, multicultural, he uses some other adjectives, but I'm not going to say, a one world mono race that is basically very easily controllable to the computer god. So all of the world's ethnicities mixing together is integral to the computer god's program of total one world enslavement. Is
Yeah.
that not based, folks? Anyways, go.
Well,
Oh,
let's start with how this computer god comes around. So,
yeah, yeah,
he has this concept called astracism, the true religion of the Slovene people.
yep,
This rant was so there's a whole website which I have it in the private chat, Gio, if you want to put it in the comments,
sure,
that has
yeah.
an entire sort of text. And these are not
Oh yeah,
all
I
of
threw
them,
it up. I'll
mind
throw it up
you.
again. I'll
Okay,
throw it up
yeah, yeah.
again.
These aren't all of them to keep in mind. So those of you who know the Toad McKinley documentary, and those of you who've kind of followed Francis E. Deck and sort of like the fan aspects behind him,
Yeah,
he has an older brother who had passed away, about 10 years ago now, who had burned the Hampstead home that Francis E. Deck resided in out of fear that people would go raiding and scavenging and looking for his works and doing things to his legacy and his life.
yeah,
So whatever we have is by the thousands of letters and mailers that he had put out to all over the country. Some had even made it, I think, to William S. Burroughs, Genesis P. Orridge.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's quite a few people that have seen these. And, of course, not to mention, most famously made by, Doc Britton.
Yeah, the shock jock. He was he before Howard Stern, I think?
Yeah. I think before Howard Stern, and had read them sort of as he kind of regrets looking back on them. I mean, because he's a Catholic priest now, isn't he? Like, he's no longer a shock jock. I mean, he's a man of the cloth. So, but I mean, they've they still have. They're nothing. Once you record something, I think, nothing's really forever.
Apparently, he was smoking. Forgotten. Yeah, he was smoking weed, and him and his producer found them because Francis C. Deck literally Xeroxed and mailed hundreds of these and would randomly plaster them all over New York. I admire, I said this was Jeffrey, I admire pre-internet schizo posting. You had to work for it. You had to go on public radio or public television, and you had to get your little time slot.
That's where Alex Jones got started, was public access TV.
Yeah, even here in Canada, should I mention him? Zundel. He had a phone line that you can call, and that's what got him tapped in the Canadian Human Rights Commission for denying a certain event that happened in the 20th century. But so yeah, he had a phone line you could call, and he had his little spiel. And so I think Alex Jones had similar cold calling things. Of course, Alex Jones, what really made him in the late 90s was terrestrial radio. That the GNC network had, I believe, Alex Jones was, I don't know what it is now. I'm assuming terrestrial radio is still part of his empire. But he had, I think at one time, 300 radio stations across America and Canada. And I believe some in Britain as well. Yeah. And so, Francis C. Deck, he was taken upon, because you have to remember, to find real, genuine folk underground schizo culture was quite difficult. You had to be in these coastal artist circles. I remember the story once from Jonathan Davis, the singer of Korn, where he said that he was at Timothy Leary's house before Timothy Leary died, and there was all these musicians around that he admired, like a Skinny Puppy, growing up, and they were watching a bootleg version of Akira, which you could only find in the late 90s from people that were in the know. A lot of these artists and creative people, they found Francis C. Deck, Toad McKinley covers. But what's very interesting is that Genesis Peerage found it. For those who don't know, Genesis Peerage and her partner, they both did the switcheroo, but they were very popular musicians affiliated with Robin Gristle and from Britain, and sort of British, new wave music. I believe new wave, or sort of industrial, but also Genesis Peerage literally tried to create the body as a work of art through transitioning, but a lot of interesting music, a lot of very interesting life. Genesis Peerage was actually held hostage once by Ian Brady, the serial killer, who was, infamous for his relationship with Myra Hindley, who helped him. They're basically Carla and Bernardo before Carla and Bernardo in England. And I believe Genesis Peerage was held captive by him until she agreed to make a song for him, which I believe was called Destroyer of Worlds or something like that. Very interesting life. So a lot of these artist circles, a lot of underground punk circles found Francis C. Deck, and then later Genesis Peerage made mixes of the Doc Bretton rants with heavily industrial music. So my good friend Matthew the Stout knows all about this because that's his area. He's really into British goth, new wave type music and industrial. Growing up in London, right? So I'm not of that, but I'm getting a little bit into that. Fields and the Film's a great band. But yeah, Genesis Peerage, amazing musician. Whatever you want to say about her, all the woke politics, so it's very funny how artist circles embraced this form of super underground schizo culture. But oh, here's a good one. Where is it? Is it from Ace or is it from yeah, there we go. Ace, Proto Stain Haynes. Then Kronkick says, I see the video was talking about grating. Yeah, exactly. Jonathan Davis was grating cheese in Timothy Leary's kitchen and was with all these like famous musicians that he grew up listening to, and they were all watching Akira in the living room. So, but nowadays, of course, you can access Genesis Peer Ridge. You can access Schizoculture because I was seeing this comment here. Yeah. I didn't know about the Genesis Peer Ridge lore. Yeah. A lot of that goth new wave industrial stuff has a lot of deep lore to it. Apparently, the chick that was in Throbbing Gristle actually did a bit of pornography back when it was seen as like cool and edgy. And so I forget her name, but don't look it up, please. Don't look it up.
Don't research.
Don't research. Throbbing Gristle is an amazing band, though. Yeah, I agree.
Well, the other aspect to this, all though, too, right, is the occultist aspect to it. You know?
Yeah, get into that for me. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, because I mean, a lot of Deck's work has found its way into occultist circles, like Genesis P. Ridge is one of the better examples. Whether it's the Temple of Psychic Youth has had stuff involved, like with Deck and collecting and trying to find letters. There was the
famous fake church.
The Church of the Unseen or Underrated Genius.
Church of the Unseen Genius.
Church of the Unseen Genius, which also had a lot of work dedicated to finding Deck, and also some of them trying to like harass him shortly before his death. Toad McKinley covers this excellently. We're just basically like a bunch of 20-something-year-old kids tried to like dress up like the Men in Black and storm into a veterans like hospital and try and like scare a man who was clearly not there. Signs of dementia were already seen. I mean, this was the 90s before he had died. And also throw a tarantula on him because it's reference to his work.
Yeah.
The mechanisms in which the gangster police.
Deadly touch tarantula spiders. No, sorry. Around corners projection of deadly touch tarantula spiders with deadly touch Tabin or electric shock flashlights. See, I memorized that whole one. It is a theory that it's rumored that he took the term deadly touch Tabin because the rumor was that certain regime in Germany that they were fighting in the war had this Tabin gas that they would release, this nerve agent. But of course, as we know, because of the Austrian painter's experiences in World War I as a junior officer, that he abhorred the use of any gas or nerve agent on the battlefield. Not in other places, but on the battlefield, he hated it. So, God. So that is how he got the deadly
fine line there, Gio.
Very fine line. So he got the term deadly touch Tabin, where the mechanical tarantula bionicle spider would inject you with this nerve agent. So, but apparently they attacked him everywhere, even in his yard, Prude. His yard, they attacked him daily. Imagine going out to like water your azaleas, and there's the CIA glow in the darks, ready to attack you again with bats and bottles and deadly touch Tabin. So go ahead. Prude.
Well, I mean,
it's
why he didn't leave his house until like the 80s at this point. You know, like from like the late 60s until like as soon as his brother let him back in like Hampstead apartment, he basically razed the house, scrapped all of its paint with single blade razors, and threw all the wiring and stuff out, and just basically lived in this like shredded house for like 20 years, barely going outside because anytime he got shopping,
because he would pay the local ethnic youths to go and buy groceries for him. Yeah.
But I think what you mentioned though, like the aspect of racial theory always plays a role into how any of these rants or any of the, and it's not just with Francis E. Deck. I mean, it's with any sort of famous schizo manifesto or anything that we find to be out there. All kinds exist, whether it's lost histories, Rosicrucianism, or even our friends who think that the Anglos still secretly run everything. There's always a
Yeah.
racial aspect to it. And so to get there and to understand where this
Guerrilla
worldwide computer
societies.
god
Yeah.
comes from, we get astracism, the empirical scientific agnostic religion of astracism created by the worldwide Slovene Empire to help the Slovene top secret worldwide computer electronic encyclopedia thousands of years ago, with its custom setup based primarily on the study of the universe, primarily to study our star, the sun, and giver of all light and heat and the sole sustenance on life on our planet Earth, to aid the white Slovenes spreading the world population of Eurasia, Europe, and Asia, which said the population composed of the tiny independent farmers, namely a worldwide agrarian population. The Slavonic Empire, through its religion of astracism, made possible that man to advance to its present-day sophistication. Astracism, religious customs, and feast days were solely to advance the agrarian white world population with automatic education and training. Example, to this day, worldwide, the very ancient Slavonic rites of this year, months of this year, created by astracism, are still used. Namely, as a couple of examples, Kiwasin, namely April, translates into vegetation, bloomed time, or Cyprian, namely August, translates into sickling time, reaping harvest time, or even Lipostad, namely November, which translates the falling of leaves time. Even in the Slavonic days of the week are created by astracism. And so that's just a little bit to go there. But he says
Slovene world order right
the
there.
Slovene world order. Several hundred years ago, the Slavonic computer became a real devil god and organized the first totalitarian superstition, communism religion, Pravoslavana. Hundreds of years later, by the computer gods, top secret intensified repetition of the fabricated historical crisis syndrome, which created a schismatic mafia communist Catholicism. Catholicism means totalitarianism, dictatorship for the control and manipulation of the human race all over the planet to explore and control the entire universe.
I forgot about his anti-Catholicism.
He hates all symbols of the Christian and Orthodox churches.
He believes they're the prosty of Babylon, essentially. Basically. That's what. And for those in the chat, no, he is way more racist than Alexander Dugin. Like, he is like, Dugin is not actually that racist, believe it or not. Like, yeah, Janice is right. Yeah. No, Eurasianism comes actually from a number of Russian cosmicists that had a lot of artists too, like that one famous symbolist landscape painter. What's his name? I can look him up. His name is slipping my tongue. But there's also like Nikolai Rorish, very much was a proto-Eurasianist thinker in terms of his unique Eastern mysticism approach to painting and to how he would travel to Tibet. He would travel to the far side of the Urals, and he believed that Shambhala was actually in Russian territory. So there you go. Or Mongolian Russo territory. So it's interesting how, as much as Francis C. Deck is incredibly racist, there still is, I think, that element of Eurasian thinking there, even at this time. It's just that, Dugin is a popularizer of that, and in a way, much less racist than its original incantations. So, and I know a lot of people in the, our spheres, that's why they don't exactly like Dugin, because they think he's a multiculturalist, right? So, but I think in Russia at this time, it is kind of crazy how there is like a ranking of races there. And by the way, Francis Deck would think that I am also African, that as an Italian. He thought that Mediterraneans were essentially black. So there's this, and the reason he thinks this is because there was a judge that stripped him of his legal license in Nassau County, which I believe is upstate New York, if I recall. And so he had this judge, he accused this judge, Frank, I forget his last name, of basically being Italian, he is a gamer word. And also his wife, but apparently nobody knew this except for him. His wife was in the front row stripping and showing her thing, parading it around, saying that if you destroy Francis E. Deck, I'll give it to you to suck on. I'm not joking.
It's in the rant.
Go to the rant. It's called To All Judges. Every judge, every authority figure, every government employee of America to Francis E. Deck.
Everything.
Every court, to the garbage man. The garbage man is in control of the communist computer god in America, to Francis E. Deck. So
And I mean, this is, and again, to expand more on his theories, is like all pyramids and the pyramids of the Torrid Zone in Central America were built by Slavenic asterism with computer god Frankenstein skullcap controls under the direct rays of the sun to eliminate the slanted diffusion, with no snow to curtail operations year-round, with endless growing season to sustain life, no intelligent population nearby to interfere or spread the secret, not to interfere while glow, smoke, dust in any population, insert ethnic slur here, with virtually no tools to this day built in Central America, sophisticated secret space astronomical centers, namely the pyramids in Central America. For centuries, the computer god fooled the world population into believing that North and South America were East India islands to off of India, and the, again, Indians, in other words, to secret truths, taught computer god secret asterism through the computerized electronic secret space research centers, the pyramids. The greatest advances were made for the worldwide agrarian Slovene race.
Whoa! Even the Egyptians were Kangs. They were Slovenes. My God. That's pretty out there.
Isn't it with every sort of alternate hypothesis or alternate fiction for the world, it always starts with someone else was the real Kangs of the world.
Slavoids were the real Anunnaki. That's like, oh my God. Yeah. So, but people overlook, though, the racial aspect for obvious reasons. I mean, I think that's why. But I think that to really like see his schizo theory. So, but in terms of interacting with technology, he believed that in 1968, he was kidnapped by agents of the computer god working for the federal government in Kennedy, New York airport. They sent, apparently he was supposed to go back to Poland.
Yeah, he was trying, after the recent events in Nassau County and realizing that his appeals had no chance of ever being listened to, or in his disbarment would never be overturned. He basically just said, fuck this, I'm out, and went to go try and leave Poland, or leave the United States to go to Poland with his brother, because that's where his parents descended from.
Yeah.
And needless to say, we get a lovely rant there if you have it open, Gio, because that the airline thing is so good.
Let me look at it if it's up. Let me find it.
Yeah. But while you're up there, though, the other, he also talks quite a bit about how things happened in America. I mean, I think we were talking about it before we went live on the air, or maybe I think we did. For instance, right, he talks about
which one is it? Is it a parroting puppet scum on top,
I think it's that one. Yeah.
Or is it Living Death Frankenstein? Living Death Frankenstein slavery. Yeah, the open.
They're all good. Well, we can go through them all.
They're all good. They're all good. A terrible prison. It's probably this one. A terrible.
Yeah, I do love his take though on the Roosevelt family. Because like here, the communist gangster computer god, unbelievably staged like Hollywood, scum on top, Sarnia, alias great dictator Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the polio paralyzed, legless drug addict, idiotic, suicidal Sarnia F slur, who had his unbeatable rival Will Rogers exterminated in an exploding ball of flame by a planted bomb safe here in the USA airfield shortly after takeoff at the end of Will Rogers' unprecedented, renowned, arduous, round-the-world goodwill flying trip with Wiley Post in his beautiful, electronically sophisticated, luxurious, ultra-modern Winnie Mae airplane. Not only all stairways and inclines for the Sarnia Roosevelt computerized wheelchair, but a football field-sized glass house-type building that was built in the back of the White House for his medicinal, pipe-impure, warm seawater into his gigantic, suicide-proof, too-deep swimming pool where he waded naked with his nurses and had sodomy affairs.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. I'm trying to find it if it's
this doesn't feel like anything different from what I can find on Twitter.
Yeah, I know, I know certain accounts, it's like, oh my God. I think it was the Worldwide Open Secret. It's probably like
oh, I have that one. Oh, well, the Worldwide no, that's in here, the Worldwide Open Secret. That's what I'm reading from.
Yeah, that's the one that, the Eleanor Roosevelt, Abe Lincoln's computer god alias for Abe Lynn Cohen. Oh, based! Law partner was Stanton Abe the gangster court's felonious conspiratoid fabricated patent infringements to swindle thousands of dollars from C. McCormick Reaper Machinery Company, as President Abe made Stanton a cabinet member in order to automatically become president. Stanton concocted a grandiose murder scheme to murder not only Lincoln, but also the Vice President, Secretary of State. Secretary Vice President Johnson overseed it. Lincoln was murdered, and Secretary of State Seward was very seriously injured. So apparently Abe Lincoln was of a certain genealogy. Worldwide communist computer gangster god scum on top stage like Hollywood plastic pail. Stand-in actor as a communist computer gangster computer god spreading speed records into dazedly simultaneously edited simultaneous voices implanted for all TV and news media microphones in any known language. Unbelievable Connors gangster solely for overthrow plan. Worldwide eternal Frankenstein living dead slavery. Yokel felon Jimmy Carter. Slime from the academies, which Mr. Deck intelligently refused unsolicited acceptance to, the most elite academy from here in Gamer Word Town. Oh my god. Oh my god.
If we weren't talking about Francis E. Deck and we were to just read these
things that never happened for
things that,
my god, Charlemagne, my god. Oh. If you want us to read more, need those super chats. Oh my god.
Or another one. This is from Gangster Police Open Containment Policy. Spring 1984, Mr. Deck, lifelong would-be doctor, printer, and insight to the worldwide computer god, stratified closed society perfected by hospital birth, making possible lifelong Frankenstein controls and lifelong hampering human defects, containment policy, hospital birth, lifelong gifts. Example, deformed, crippled, retarded, pox, hives, warts, moles, blindness, deafness, poor vision, etc. The kosher boaster containment policy worked good doctors, secret health examples, cataract, rheumatism, weak heart, damaged vision, epilepsy, failing spells, paralysis, loss of memory, trembling, gout, diabetes, and many diseases.
Oh god, I love this. Oh, your mic was almost like falling apart in the middle. They're like,
oh, that's what it's for.
Yeah, like I love how we're rap battling Francis E. Deck rants. This is amazing.
Oh, nice. They're so good. They're so good. But I think that one of the reasons why I also do all these, not just to act like a radio disc jockey for 5 minutes, but it's just that. So, I mean, keep in mind, he dies in 1996, the age of 70, which we'll get to in a minute about why it's such an important number here. But, I mean, this is nothing new, right? He's not the first person to feel persecuted. He's certainly the first one to gain a cult following and notoriety. But how much of this have we read off today that sounds like anything that you could find on Twitter or some more your blog
or Telegram,
or Telegram.
Telegram.
So yeah,
I gotta think back for that one.
I just can't help but find myself thinking, man, if only this man were born a few decades later, he'd probably have like a publishing deal or a great a great career on BitChute.
A great career on BitChute. Oh my god.
Between Alien Man and X-22 Report and all that jazz, like, somewhere right there, Francis E. Deck would be garnering hundreds of thousands of views, telling them how to break the control mechanisms of the worldwide gangster communist computer god that rules over them. Because their skulls have been hollowed out to such a point that they have a collar and chips inside that gets stored in a station behind the moon. I mean, come on. I just can't help but think that, this guy would have made bank.
He'd be writing ebooks. Yeah.
He's got like, what's the word I'm looking for? He's got like turtle dove vibes about alternate history. Which is a little more based.
Oh man, he could like sell out to like online racists everywhere. Like there would be a cult to Francis E. Deck in our lifetime, no doubt. This was Prude's Hard Times promo. That comes from Dusty Rhodes, by the way, the Hard Times promo. But born in the wrong era, exactly. Only if Only if Prude was about 350 pounds and had
Oh,
more of a
God.
southern accent, he could be like the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
I'm
But
not sure if I could do that.
but by the way, I noticed Charlemagne, why doesn't he have a Patreon or anything? He doesn't believe in e-grifting or something. He doesn't.
Well, he's got his Substack now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and
I'm
I'm sure
he could have a good Patreon.
and he will open one up hopefully soon. I mean, if you don't, I mean, I'm going to just mindlessly shill, not mindlessly, very purposefully shill Charlemagne here. Charlemagne is responsible for the findmyfriends.net thing, which is sort of like our alternate based link tree,
Oh yeah.
which he's done more or less for free. The way that you can support him is on Substack. He does fantastic book reviews. And the purpose why is to help us understand what these people are writing, but also to give us a sense of authority and understanding. That way we're not talking out of our ass most of the time. So if you can donate money to him on his Substack, Neo Reactor, please do so, because the work that Charlemagne has done over the last several years is well deserving of your money.
You should put me on the list now, on his Find My Friends. I know you're on it, Prude. But
yeah, well,
yeah. Can anyone sign up for? It's kind of like Linktree, right? Or how does that work?
Well, he'll do it for you.
Oh, okay.
Well,
I'll switch to that.
yeah, just go send him a message and work with it. But
Yeah.
he's responsible for a lot, not just in propagation of ideas, but just general community support and things like that. So he's making a good life for himself. So if you can support him, please do.
Yeah, he has a subscribe tab with the Russian assholes who run it take forever and want admin access to my Twitter to speed up the process. That's what you have to do to go to Subscribestar.
Yeah, they really wanted you to, like, 2 years ago when I first made mine at the end of like 2020, I did not have as many problems getting it set up or having to verify with an email or a phone number or anything like that. I mean, like, yeah, you have to give them information for like when you want your payouts, but like the verifying speed up process is not that bad.
Yeah, I'm having good luck on Patreon though. Patreon.com/Johnner Productions. So yeah, but I didn't know that about subscribers. Because I mean the Patreon you have to do the same, but it's all like automated. Like you have to like put in your bank info or they do it through PayPal. But like yeah. I guess I'll make it so
yeah, do the buy me a coffee, do the Patreon thing, Charlemagne. You definitely deserve it.
Yeah. I didn't know that he runs Find My Friends. That's crazy. I didn't know that. So Francis E. Deck, so the whole story was that we finally got to it. He tried to go back to Poland because apparently he predicted by intuiting the moves of the communist computer god. He predicted the late 60s market rally, especially his airline stocks that he was losing his shirt on, and managed to make a sizable chunk of change that allowed him to live up until the mid 70s or so in his half dilapidated house. And he decided to go back to Poland. He went to Kennedy, New York airport, but apparently now this is his story. He was kidnapped by communist computer god agents working for the federal government, the FBI, sent him to the Montreal airport that he knew he was there because of the asbestos hanger tiles they had at the front entrance. But he says that he was out of it because the communist computer god tried to poison him through noxious nerve gas in the airplane through pens, the air conditioner port, speakers, and even someone's cigar.
Cigar smoke, a wig, and even the
wig.
ice off of the drinks.
The ice, emitted the gaseous nerve agent, probably Tabin, that apparently if you realize the con of the communist gangster computer god, you're immune somehow. But he became incredibly sick. They had to drag him off the airplane. And they had to divert the flight to Montreal. That's probably what happened because he started wigging out. But
you say that his brother beat the shit out of him as well.
Yeah, his brother would beat him, but also his brother would have sex with quote unquote sodomist sluts that he would hand off to him that he was banging, the year before. So his brother was taking his sloppy seconds when he wasn't beating him up and subjugating him to the same noxious nerve gases. That's why he had hundreds of razors to strip off the paint from his room in his house that his brother lent him because it was permeated with the communist gangster computer got gas. So yeah. So then I believe he was held in captivity for about 3 days or so. They sent him back to Kennedy, New York airport. He didn't make it to Poland. He said that they tricked him or something.
Yeah.
That they thought he was in Poland, but really he was in Montreal airport. So I can't really. No, apparently his brother never did.
Did those things. In fact, his older brother, who died in 2010 or so, 2010, he took care of him until the end. And if you go to the website, you go through all the archives of things like that. There is a letter that he had sent back in reply, because of course, Deck had a cult following. And there are those that had wanted to probably mess with him and things like that. One of them had sent him a letter to which he had replied, saying, "Thank you for the kind words," and all that jazz. "I'm taking care of my brother, and he doesn't need money or anything like that, and he's at a veterans hospital," which unfortunately is what gave away his location. So, OPSEC failure in the very early days, folks. But I can't imagine what he probably had to perceive it as, right? Because it's like also in the Toad McKinley documentary with like the Nassau County and his disbarment, like he tells his story, and then we get a very clear, lengthy court document that talks about what the rest of the world saw during this time, which is kind of, again, tragic. But his brother did take very good care of him towards the end.
Yeah. Oh, I just found this, by the way, from Josh Lakatch. Side note, apparently that Dash Dobrovsky guy, he's like, oh boy, Donald Trump. Apparently he was a failed reality TV actor from like 2015. And then
I believe that.
Yeah. So
all political activists and political personalities that are in the mainstream are just failed actors and actresses.
Yeah. And apparently, so Twitter is still alight with the passing of Queen Elizabeth.
Of course.
So it's, I haven't seen that much ghoulish takes, but I'm sure that the ghoul takes will probably be coming out pretty soon. You'll probably have to go to certain Chapo Twitter accounts that will be, but I haven't, as usual, people are saying RIP. And I believe the royal family Twitter account, let me look up the official Twitter account. They have like hundreds of royal family, hundreds of thousands of likes and retweets. Oh my God, 320,000. A statement from Her Majesty the King. Is it going to be King Charles now? I can't believe that, man. It's like for years, So apparently the lower races, Francis E. Deck said they don't even know numerals. That's how bad they are. Can you believe it? The mongrel races don't even know numerals. Oh my God. Why must I be at a drill? Why must I be at a drill when Prudentialist starts screaming? Oh man. Let's check in on John D's Twitter account. Let me see what he's tweeting. Must be. Is he pro or anti-monarchy?
I don't think it's a pro or anti thing at this point. It's just whether or not you respect the fact that a part of your culture has died.
So
I mean, I think it's a solemn day, regardless of what your take is on the reign of her rule. But I'm much more somber about it, because I think it's a recognition that it's sort of the last gas and remnants of the 20th century, but. If the recent events in the UK over the last 30 years or so has been any indication, the 21st century won't be kind to the British Isles either.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, things are getting worse. Did you see that picture of the knife not dispensary? What's the opposite of dispensary? The knife drop off.
Oh yeah.
They even have the machete slot. Like, oh my God. In Canada, we're pretty bad. We're probably just as bad, but in Britain, they've really fell on hard times. And having watched that, the speech by Jonathan Bowden again, there was a Twitter clip by, I believe, Western Bestern, or was it Western?
He put it out. I think so.
Yeah, it was Western Bestern, the great editor, Western Bestern, who edits all of the BAP clips. He put it out, and I said it was one of the most black-pilling things I've ever seen in my life. because like I said, growing up, my old man being an Anglophile and having a great love and respect for the British history, it is quite sad to see that such an integral piece of the British way of life and identity has died today. Even though she has embraced in some ways celebritydom, it's really quite tragic, especially the fact that her own family, elements of her own family, tried to smear the royal family before her death. I mean that, but say no more. I don't want to get too depressing. So anyways, moving on, Francis E. Deck. So the rants, there is something about, what else do we want to cover about Francis E. Deck? Well, I think the element of the fact that he, in some weird ways, predicted that consciousness itself would be seeded by an overmind or a new spheric sort of technology or a technics of bio-psychic control. And the fact that you have to realize that there is something sophisticated about his theory. Okay, bar the schizophrenia and the racism aside, there is something quite...
now that we've gotten those two caveats out
of the way, there is something quite sophisticated about his theory about how human consciousness is supplanted by an overmind. And I think that there is, like you were saying before in the beginning of the show, there is sort of a common run through between a lot of schizoaffective theories about the nature of reality. The fact that they say that they are plagued by an overmind, this is where the gang stuck. For example, there's this one incident where he's saying how he would go, apparently used to do this back in the day for free. Nowadays you have, bank programs and stockbrokers. You used to go to the brokerage offices and read the ticker tape for free. And so he would go there, he would rally his stocks. And he said he was walking from the ticker tape office and he would look into the empty offices and they would have gangster communist computer god agents in there spying on him. And that in fact, the stockbrokers were spying on him for the communist computer god. And so everywhere he went so he would, for example, go to different routes to get his groceries, and he would go to different grocery stores so that the agents of the computer god wouldn't track him. So he basically, his whole life was revolved around this gang stalking reality. But at the same time, he did have a sophisticated theory about how the gangster computer god supplanted your consciousness, how world events were basically guided by a numerals machine that was controlled by the gangster communist computer god, and how basically the world wars, the stock market crash, all world events are basically controlled, but he was the only one able to see it. So yeah, I mean, oh boy.
Yeah. But I mean, what's the other thing about him that also kind of really stuck out to me? Not just from the Toad McKinley thing, but just I enjoyed the entertainment aspect, don't get me wrong, of Doc Britton's radio stuff. In the same way, it does remind me a lot of the techno remixes that people have done of Nick Land's Meltdown.
Yeah.
There is a certain artistic aesthetic to it all that I think helps permeate it through, especially a wider culture. I mean, there's a reason why two guys that are definitely right-wing that are talking about him in the same way that there are guys that are occultists or people that wish to be Pandronine, right? Like make their bodies look like it's one, or like it was with Genesis Peerage. And also just really weird occult guys that start a church, like the Church of the Unseen or
Church of the Subgenius. That's what it was.
Church of the Subgenius. And there's an aesthetic practice to it to where on the right there, especially now where we are, it's very much we are living in a postmodern world. Like modernity is still definitely a thing, but I think we are witnessing an age where it is coming towards the age of post-modernity, where things are no longer based upon grand narratives, but they are deconstructed to their roots to understand how the mind operates. This is why, even if you aren't a leftist or post-structuralist type of person, I think that you definitely want to read A Thousand Plateaus or the, Spectre of Marx and things like that. They're worth reading because those concepts, they're not, you may disagree with where they take them to, but a lot of those things still have a ton of practicability, and it's important to use those tools accordingly. But I find this stuff to be really interesting. The reason why I wanted to sort of just appreciate all of these rants is, one, they're preserved. The fact that plenty of people on the internet today will write hundreds and hundreds of threads or thousands of essays on Substack and whatever. We don't know how well they'll be preserved, right?
Right.
Will there be, will there be, 80 years from now, will there be a cult of BAP? Probably.
Definitely.
For sure. But regular other schizo posters or anime PFPs, who knows? I find that interesting. And at the same time, I also find it uniquely interesting that how well, in an abstract sense, this stuff is aged. Because like you had mentioned, this idea of an omnipotent computer god that adheres to a specific ideology. I mean, we're getting to that point right now, right? The idea that machine learning and AI is racist. And the reason why they say it's racist, right, is bam, it notices patterns like the rest of us normal people. And that's not good, because that disproves the civic religion of the day and era. But that's why they're trying to change it. And they're trying to program things like equity. So, I think Millennial Woes had an excellent Telegram post a couple months back where he was talking about the idea of hospitals using AI to distribute medicines and treatment and beds and triage.
I saw
equity.
that.
Yeah. So basically, this omnipotent computer god is basically going to tell you, 45-year-old white guy that has a weird feeling in his chest to get in the back of the line. And that's how they're going to operate it. And so I just find this stuff to be rather well aged. Even if you are constantly in fear that there are feds. But even then, that kind of schizophrenia doesn't just manifest itself in mental illness, but also manifests itself how we talk about in the ether of the online. Everyone's the fed, everyone glows, I glow, Geo glows. It doesn't matter, because everyone is out for themselves in the midst of being immune to the worldwide computer god. Because I've always considered the internet and how we talk about it in politics or online and just in discourse in general is that it is a void, like a room that is just this white room and a void with no ends, no way to see where the ceiling is or where the roof is or where it ends. And it's always at 185 decibels constantly of random people screaming at all times. It doesn't stop. And
that's the online world now. Yeah.
And you are screaming into that void, and you are hoping that someone hears you on the other side of the room. And that you guys can have a message, or that they can pick up what you're saying and they pick up what you're laying down. And that's what I consider it, because it's just there are a million other content creators. There are a million other people that write essays. There are a million other people that write books. There are a million other people that do podcasts like this. But somehow, in the midst of all this void of us screaming and the void of people monitoring it and the void of people glowing and listening to all these screams and voices, you somehow found your way here. And we're very
Yeah. You somehow decided to listen to us, which is kind of weird, but no, it's true. I mean, that's what Bedlam was like. It was basically, imagine never ending screaming in a dirty, disheveled room, bare white enamel room without end. That sort of classic picture of the early mental institutions that Michel Foucault wrote about. And of course, both mental patients and prisoners were the first subjects of medical science, because you had a huge degree of this is where psychiatry came from, because you had a huge degree of abnormal people that were basically wards of the state, that you could do whatever you wanted to them. So a lot of psychiatrists started off basically interviewing prisoners and mental patients and soldiers as well, because soldiers were always subject to government experimentation. And a theory cell point I wanted to make was, now that you were talking about this sort of overlayer of reality that is instantiated by the sort of omniscient technological apparatus that we're always experiencing, even in the palm of our hands. It sort of is a critical theory point, and this is why a lot of people, a lot of sociology people look at, schizoculture and how. Okay, so let's define what schizoculture means. It basically means that there is no conscious criticism between the virtual and the actual. That upon the real, there is a layer of the virtual that is always hovering above ever presently. There's no separation in the schizophrenic between what they see in terms of ideation, auto-hallucinatory ideation, and what is really in front of them. So now when you have various cultural theories that are going into saying that our sort of constructions about the real inform the real and create these like weirdo ergogores, if enough people believe in them, it gives them power to create reality. Not create reality totally, but to inform reality in a way. You have a lot of like occultic people that also do this in the 20th century, the 21st century. The cult of the subgenius is kind of like this troll trick religion that did this. You know, you have a lot of people that would blend conspiracy and act like, you know, semi-actual or real events or narratives about those events with fiction, with science fiction. Robert Anton Wilson comes to mind. Church of Discordia.
Oh yeah.
You know, to an extent. I know a lot of those people. Like I used to bump into these people in the Facebook New Age days. You know, a lot of them are hideous leftists now. They're Bernie bros. I remember one time there was this popular post. It was in a Terrence McKenna group where this one guy said that Bernie was a glitch in the Matrix coming to save us. So it's funny though, because if you were doing psychedelics in the 2000s, most of you became obnoxious, like leftist Bernie bros with pronouns in your bio. But there was a small percentage of the Ron Paul version of that became incredibly far right people. So, you know, so yeah, so there's Church of Discordia, there's the works of Robert Anton Wilson where you're not really sure what is real or what is a science fiction or, you know, fictional, auto-fictional construction. And so he had a term for it. He called it guerrilla ontology, where basically, like a guerrilla, you know, insurgent, you are trying to upend the reality of people around you. You're trying to distort their ontological picture of what is true and actual and, you know, being itself. So the example he used, the funny example was, and I believe Robert Anton Wilson also read the rants of Francis E. Dec, if I recall. He ventured in those circles, you know, back in the day when he went to the Libertopia thing, you know, back when libertarians were seen as cool and edgy and a lot of cheese pizza things going on as well.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at the chat. Is Gio talking about Cernovich?
Is Gio talking about Cernovich? No, Robert Anton Wilson, but yeah, maybe Cernovich. Yeah, you know, you do psychedelics, then you become highly religious and highly racist. So, you know, only a small percentage of them did that. But also need those super chats if you want me to go in depth on one of your questions. So anyways, yeah, there's a good one. Internet archaeology and preservation is very important. It's very true. There is a myth that the information, you know, us millennials, we were taught that information on the internet is there forever. That is not true. Okay. It's another thing. The events of this week with Kiwi Farms proves that. Now you can access it on some kind of, you know, backroom server or whatever. But didn't
they do what the website that I won't name out loud tried to do and just like go to a Russian
the Daily
host?
You Know What? Yeah, they did that. You can't access it on the Wayback Machine. You can't go to the Wayback Machine and access Kiwi Farms. And also the Daily Fuddy Duddy, you know, the Daily Hoo Ha, that other website that you can only access through a proxy. But anyway, so yeah, that's what I mean. Like there is, when it comes to the schizoaffective nature of the real, right? When your information is sort of, there is no conscious criticism between the thoughts you have in your head walking down the street and actually walking down the street and experiencing reality. There's a lot of like very high like theory cell ways of playing with that. I know a lot of people that love the works of Nick Land and Riza Negrestani. They, you know, have this sort of weirdo like theory fiction element to it, right? So a lot of it is sorry, someone in the chat said, whoa, that dude is fat. Are you talking about me or Null? Or Andrew Anglin's a skinny guy. He's not I think they say Null is fat. I don't believe it though. I don't think Null is that fat. Anyways, getting off track. Oh boy. So yeah, when it comes to like the guerrilla ontology concept, there was this example that Robert Anton Wilson used in one of his books. I believe it was either Cosmic Trigger. No, it may have been the Illuminatus trilogy. Where it's about this short person. What's the politically incorrect term? Short people?
Sure.
Or a dwarf or whatever. It was about this dwarf person who would like do things like he would change the signs in the grocery lanes, and he would like change like street addresses and everything just so he could get back at like those giants that he's surrounded by every day, like, you know, normal hype people. And so, yeah, I highly recommend looking into Robert Anton Wilson. And I do believe he did have some kind of like, I think he read Francis E. Deck. So, yeah, the gorilla ontology concept is fascinating. Yeah.
Well, I think that there's a lot to say there, because I mean, and again, probably what Deck references obviously is a clear sign of auditory hallucination when he says like if he's silent, he can listen to the Frankenstein radio controls, like instructing people on what to do and what to believe in. But at the same time, there's something where I can stay silent on Twitter and I can let the feed update and I can basically listen to what everyone else thinks and believes in.
Right.
There is a way, and again, this is why I find the Deleuzian sense of schizophrenia to be so important when I look at these things, because what transcends the actual disease of schizophrenia in, say, the writings of Francis E. Deck is now more or less the modern schizophrenia of living in a market-oriented society in which all aspects of identity, personality have become mechanized tools for consumer culture, to where even the very things that I browse, the very things that I look at, the very things that I read are now part of metadata. It is the biggest part of how these social media products make their money, by selling that data for advertisers and things like that. If the product is free, then you're what they're paying for, basically, you know?
Yeah. And so there is also a book which I believe I have or have to get, called Schizoculture by Semiotext, which is, you know, Semiotext publishes along with Varso,
Yeah.
all those like, you know, theory cell, new school type of books. Like they publish, you know, Deleuze, and they publish Derrida and, you know, Althusser. So, you know, Semiotext is about this conference in 1988. Talks about like the art world and like new theory and like continental thought. So it was a breakthrough issue, as Lottinger explains, commemorated the magazine's rupture with the Academy. So a lot of like very famous like theory cell continental authors like Deleuze published in this compilation called Schizoculture. So yeah, basically it is like this sort of like weirdo blending of like the real and the fictive. So it also mentions in the blurb in Art Forum, it's this this one author in Art Forum says that just then Michel Foucault had been denounced as a CIA hireling by a knowledgeable provocateur from Lyndon LaRouche's Labor Committee. Oh my God! I mentioned LaRouche. There you go. The compiler Lottinger recognized as a former colleague of his own from Swarthmore College. The audience, unfamiliar with Foucault, had started to close in on him angrily and ask if it was true. I believe this is before Michel Foucault died of, the pandemic of that other day. And he made the mistake of denying it vehemently. I won't go into detail here. Suffice to say that Foucault had got the last laugh a day later when similar disruption was attempted again. The Schizoculture Conference exceeded the ideas and intentions of everyone involved. From the Weather Underground, radical far left groups to continental theorists, the works of radical feminists like T. Grace Atkinson, William S. Burroughs, John Cage, all the ones that these lit cells fawn over. French thinkers having the air support of the history of discipline of philosophy, including Lacanian psychoanalysis, were collectively fluent in the total immersion in concept, in which they were pursuing a kind of poetic practice with the immersion and fighting their way out of it. Their high gear creation of concepts eventually proved wonderful for American artists and writers, such as John Cage. The American underground scene, where intellectual complex artists, quote, managed to get there without relying on language, as Lottinger puts it, was something lionized and coveted by the French philosophers. Ludinger relates that Deleuze, who detested traveling but loved Anglo-American literature, was only prevailed upon to cross the Atlantic by the promise that he and Guattari would meet the beats and shake hands with Bob Dylan and Patti Smith. Oh my God, that's crazy. There is like quite a lot of lit cells in like American folk music now. I hate to say it, Prude. There's a lot of like lit continental theory cells in American folk arts. So, but what do you think? Do you think Francis E. Deck, like, could you reformulate it as like a sort of like folk poetics, or is that giving it too much credence? I don't know. I mean,
No,
I know academics who would think it's, terrible, but yeah.
I'm sure that there are some that would say that it's terrible, but I would side with Toad McKinley that you could easily read this as a much more spoken word kind of Philip K. Dick style of writing.
Yeah.
I mean, the prose is not hard to parse and read. I mean, clearly we can't read most of it for obvious reasons. It
mentions a few gamer words.
Yeah, it mentions quite a few gamer words. But I mean, I don't know. I can read this, and this is why I said at the very beginning, I don't find this too discernible from anything that I can find on Twitter. Honest to God, if Francis E. Deck were alive today, a lot of these rants that are published out there would be on Parallax Optics' like site.
Yeah,
it would be on the gallery. I just no questions asked. That's my gut feeling. But I mean, even then, right? Like if we want to talk about some more post-critical stuff, this is in which one is it? This is in the rant of Infrared Crusader Priests beyond comprehension.
Whoa!
I'm just going to take this little bit here.
That could be a death metal album title.
Oh, it sure could be. But we'll go with this. The first gangster judges that were Gangster Frankenstein's skull-capped, later skull-capped based womanly wigs, chicanerous, deadly gangster, communist, atheist, Catholic Church, back-robed priests, and the communist puppet King's Court, all completely concocted and manipulated, insidious, deadly, conspiring con artists, parroting puppets of the worldwide, mad, deadly, communist, gangster, computer god. All law and all lawmakers are communist, gangster, computer god concoctions and manipulations with gangster, playboy, parroting, puppeted, con artist judges who never even look at their volumes of decision books unbelievably printed by gangster, computer god, brain computer printing machines at 2,000 words a minute, even for black, and I'm not even going to say the gamer word, Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, or even the tiniest inferior brain of their congresswomen. So I mean,
based.
Just read that out and just think about the other stuff that I can find, say with Parallax Gallery or Apostate Gallery, I should say, and all their other sort of well-known treatises and writings that the meme about a certain text called Siege comes to mind as well.
Yeah, it's funny because how Doc Bratton. Another popular radio host at the time, Bob Larson, actually the infamous James Mason interview with Bob Larson. They actually repeated it recently, a year ago. Like it's basically like Hogan Ultimate Warrior 2, where Bob Larson interviewed James Mason again. I believe it was a few years ago. It's funny though. You were saying about like right-wing schizoculture. Did you know that A. Wyatt Mann is a member of the Church of Satan? Did you know that?
No,
I know. Eh? Yeah. It's crazy. But also, there was like I know that who else was a member of the Church of Satan? I can't believe it. Boyd Rice. Yeah. So he was doing a lot of these things in the 80s and 90s. He was a member of Church of Satan, doing his industrial, his noise music, right? So you have like even the political right, I feel, has like a sort of place within schizoculture, especially of like a certain people that love a certain Austrian painter's regime. There's a lot of like weirdo esoteric theories written by people like Sestri Devi, but it's funny how like postmodernists and like far right neo what's sort of like meet in the middle somewhere.
Well, the other thing that came to mind too. I don't know if did you read Schwab's 2-part pieces on MK Ultra that IM 1776 published?
I'm currently reading it because I think I'm going to interview Schwab for content.
Oh, good. But I mean, a lot of this comes to mind as well. Is that because what is the great narrative and sort of the running gag about the post World War II narratives about like Soviet and American space race, arm race, tech race, every kind of aspect of clandestine operations is that you kind of get it from the same people from the mid-century somewhere in Germany that studied the occult and practiced certain kinds of arts. And there's a lot of esoterica behind rocket launches and like celestial alignments and celestial bodies that allowed these things to happen.
Yeah.
And, this idea of a now globalized system of algorithmic, ways to hack your attention span, to push away your attention to where you're more or less the meme that everyone puts out of, oh, your personality is based upon an algorithm, where we get the NPC meme. I mean, a lot of this just, again, if there is some sort of computer god that is wiring in computer controls, I mean, we're almost kind of living in it now, more or less. Is like, here is your personality that is downloaded upon you that will change upon what is the current thing and the popular thing. That's why we see the NPC meme with the newest patch software update being put in the back of their heads. And I'm just thinking to myself, oh, gee, Frankenstein radio controls with your own vision also being put upon you based upon your skull being hollowed out. Yeah, it sounds a lot more like it makes sense and more these days, which is always crazy because you don't want to border along the lines of, well, clearly, Matt, you're sounding like you're an absolute fucking out there, not touching reality. Please go touch grass. But at the same time, right, like I live in a time and age where literally someone who is handling an epidemic for a disease that almost explicitly is 99.98% targeting a specific demographic in the United States is now being handled by someone who is also wears leather and has a Church of Satan tattoo on his chest, who also happens to be a member of that group of sex who have men who have sex with men, as they like to say now these days. So it's just like,
even Jack Parsons.
How far off am I from being completely out of touch to where I'm more like, no, really, there are demons in my breakfast every morning, and this is what I'm dealing with.
You know what's funny is that the certain anime gripers, they of a certain forum, they think that the whole AI is demonic, that's like, take your meds, and that's not true. I mean, I don't know. I mean, there are certain, I think like possession's more complicated than one thinks. I think that to say that AI on its face, just trying to quote unquote fix paintings, which pisses me off to no end.
I love who posted that the other day. Anyone who shares that AI tweet bot thing is going to get blocked.
Yeah.
I'm all for it, because I saw one of them do the Ecce Homo painting of Christ, like the one from Spain that got famously. Yeah, and they're like, well, here's our improvement of it. I'm just like, I have it saved somewhere in my draft tweets. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is just like downright heretical, and this AI bot needs to be destroyed. But
they fixed Picasso, they fixed
Van Gogh,
Edvard Munch, Gogh. Yeah. No, but apart from that, I think the real possession is more complicated than just simply using a prompt to piss people off who are artists. It's more of you have to have something inside of you to be possessed to begin with. You have to have sort of a susceptibility to certain things. I feel like the modern world, the way that it's structured now, the hyper-modern world is sort of designed, and this is what Francis Deck is probably, in some weird ways correct, in that it is designed to sort of inculcate your own consciousness apart from your own will or your own better judgment. I think a lot of what's being normalized now, I mean, someone brought up Jack Parsons in how he was a Thelemite and he was in charge of the space program. And we actually have 2 more super chats. Oh my god. Let me see. I wanted to highlight something here. This is interesting. Boyd Rice and Bob Larson. Oh yeah, so it's funny because Boyd Rice also had a confrontational interview with Bob Larson, but then they became friends after. Malachi Martin said that possession is voluntary. That's very true. Yeah, possession is voluntary, at least to some extent. I know it's a super chat, Putana, but I don't want to read it. It's it's so... No, it's a joke. It's a joke, though. It's a joke. But I also had another $10 super chat. Where is it? Let me check. Oh, yeah, by... Cringewalker. Nice. But we'll get to it because he asks a very interesting question. But I don't know if you wanted to wrap up earlier. You want to still go, Prude?
Oh no, we have time. I just
Yeah.
the reason. So someone in the chat had mentioned that it feels like things are at a different time. Well, we have lives. I was invited to a lovely feast day dinner,
Yeah.
so I'm going to go. So that's why we're doing it a little
I got to
early.
break my fast soon, or else I'm gonna get quite apoplectic,
There you go.
as millennial woes say it. Apoplectic. Matthew does an amazing millennial woes impression, but he's English, so that's cheating. I mean, he could
Basically
replicate
cheating.
that. Yeah, Scottish.
Let me. I'm going to try and do this one in like an NPR style voice.
Okay,
This one is
yeah.
from the Gangster Computer God Worldwide Secret Containment Policy. This is towards the end.
I love the
All right.
name, by the Worldwide Secret Containment Policy.
I love it. I love them because this, again, I just feel like I didn't travel 40, 60 years ago to go read these. It's like, oh no, I'm on Twitter.
You know what's funny though? After this, I think as a special treat for the audience, I was telling Catherine that back in 2012, I was going through my old laptop. I was transferring through Google Docs my grad and undergrad documents and everything, and I discovered my dream journal on my laptop, and I forgot that I wrote down the semi-erotic dream.
Is this the thing that you're talking about on Telegram?
I think no, that's the recent one.
Okay.
This wasn't that erotic. It was just I fell in love with this woman that predicted maybe the global pandemic back in 2012. So press 1 in the chat if you want me to read that dream on air. So yeah, go ahead, read your thing. I'll try to find it while you're reading it. So,
all right, so we'll go through this last one, and since Charlemagne had already done the NPR voice meme, I won't do that then. All right, but here we'll go. All right. Computer God, computerized brain thinking, sealed robot, operating arm surgery, cabinet machine removal of the most frontal command lobe of the brain gradually during the lifetime and overnight in all sane asylums after the Computer God kosher bosher 1-month probation period, creating helpless, hopeless Computer God Frankenstein earphone radio parroting puppet brainless slaves, resulting in millions of hopeless, helpless, homeless derelicts of Jerusalem cities, in Jerusalem with US in the middle, and Soviet slave work camps. Not only hangman rope deadly gangster parroting puppet scum on top know this medical secret even worse than the deadly gangster from the deaf Ronnie Reagan to the USSR Gorbachev knows this oy vey Computer God containment policy top. And I even held out on quite a few more of these lovely gamer words in here, but they're great.
My god, that's amazing.
So good. But it's not, and again, it's not like anything that I wouldn't imagine that I've read today.
Yeah.
But I do love, if you do go to the website, though, the Ben2 and Starkey.com, which has all the deck rants, you need to go for the graphics alone. Like, there are some that I cannot share on screen, like a lovely hybrid mix of someone that you could find in a much more Orthodox Jewish part of New York City mixed with basketball. It's just fantastic. So go yourselves and
Go and find
go. This is one of those do not research that we're encouraging you to research.
Yeah, there was the guy that did the illustrations. It's quite good. Man, I'm trying to find the stream journal here, but
and the other thing about these too, right, is that again, if you find these, because he mailed out thousands of them, so some of them are probably still out there in like rusted old computer cabinets. Like one of the ones I read. And the ones that Gio and I went through today was not discovered until 2008. That was, sent into the website that they had. So like, there's a place for all of this stuff to be collected. There are some Xerox copies that you can go out and print for yourself and post places. Someone who had mentioned like proto-stained Hanes. I mean, this is also similarly lit to what H.P. Lovecraft did. He had a mailing list that he would mail out to publishers and to his friends because he wasn't well established and wasn't, until he was posthumously made famous in the same way.
The mailing list thing was so big back in the day.
Well, yeah, I mean that's also how zine culture was more prominent back then. Like I hate to reference the Frederick Gunderson like Down the Rabbit Hole series, but he did a whole like hour and a half one on like the furry community, and basically how that just started as like a bunch of like horny artists like mailing stuff to each other, and they created mailing lists, and that's how more or less it became a thing before like the Usenet days. And I just imagine that there was probably a lot of people that anxiously, bought into this and was waiting for the next mailer to come out, because your only hope for the future was Francis E. Deck Esquire.
Yeah. your only hope for the future. But yeah, so I think I was thinking about publishing some of my dream journals. I just saw the Charlemagne and Pure Voice. I love Google. Oh, not even numerals. So I was gonna publish this on Substack, but the gist of it is basically I fall in love with this girl and we're going through these like deserted streets and there's like this pandemic going on and we find this dog in this old shop and I'll publish it. I can't. It's much too much for me to read it on air. It's too. But essentially, I go into this like church where I felt weird, but it was like one of them like strip mall like gospel revival black churches, and this was in 2012. This is in 2012. I don't know. Should I read it, Prude? Should I read it?
Well,
it's kind of strange.
It can't be any worse than any of the things I've just been reading, so why not?
Why not? Let me read it. Then we'll get to the super chats. So this is from April 2nd, I believe. April 2nd, Monday, 2012. I believe I called it Finding Joy in the Present Chaos. So I'm in a strange place. I'm walking around in a city I don't know. Everywhere is foggy in the stream. We are underneath a pale gray sky. It is the morning. The dew is still visible. Quite far off, there is a rumbling in the distance heard after the morning rain. I feel strange about everything. Everywhere people are walking, keeping distance. Then suddenly I remember that there is some sort of plague or epidemic going on. I'm not joking. This is from 2012. I wrote this. Okay, please. I'm not joking. So everyone's walking around confused with a blank, fearful look on their face. I stumble upon what looks like a shopping mall building of some sort. An old black driveway slopes down, so sort of like the cracked tarmac, with new glass doors I see inside. I discover that as the evangelical church, I can hear the loud sounds of the crowd on site of what appears to be an old warehouse they have restored. Everywhere there is a powder blue carpet with designs of dark blue, kind of like you would see in an old rundown hotel or casino. Off to my side is a depressing small lounge of some sort where there are people, mostly black people, reading magazines in chairs with a large set of small tables huddled together in the middle. A canopy or fake ceiling is hanging from above. To my front, there's scanners, guards. There's sort of like a metal detector thing frisking us. I turn back thinking before of this whole thing that I'm probably better off in my own church. I should get out of here. I walk outside and past the glass doors outside to the end of the black parking lot to my left in a separate building. Railing, blah, blah, blah. I'm just describing scenes. I eventually come across a building that had the Helix sign, like it's like a converted fast food place, but really it's a medical clinic. And there's all these people walking out, standing around outside. I start walking with this long stretch on the sidewalk that all along is accompanied by this tall hedgerow. On top are trees on the other side shading the sidewalk. I walk along when suddenly a girl comes up from behind me. She is slightly taller than me. We start talking or even hitting it off, blah, blah, blah. She has a plain but beautiful face with a slight hook nose, semi-long brunette hair, wearing a speckled white tank top and blue jean shorts with white sandals. She's radiant, beautiful, the glowing wide smile I love in a woman. We walk along this is from 2012, folks, so this is not me now, but maybe it is. I discover we were walking along the same small, we're walking to a mom and pop diner where we can get some real food. I don't know why I said real food. I guess because like in my dream, this is what I'm saying to myself. We walk along this big stretch of road, sort of like a semi-highway we find in the southern part of my town. When we see no one else but a cop car driving slowly, I slightly panic. I know why I'm starting to panic inside of myself. There seems to be more and more of them nowadays, I say, because they stop anyone for any reason nowadays. So I guess this is along the whole pandemic social distancing thing. But my attention but my attraction assures me that they won't stop for anything nowadays. Sort of like, remember those, peak 2021 stories where they said the cops wouldn't stop people anymore for like random things unless there was like a serious crime going along. Like, remember like those stories? I don't know why. Maybe I predicted those, where even the cops would be affected by the global Chinese delicacy. So then we go down this grassy hill. There's this big gravel lot in front of the lot is this old row of apartments and shops, sort of like, post-industrial type of town. I go into detail describing it, how it looks very lonely. Then we find this dog in this old window display. I don't know. I say to myself, I don't know how this dog is still alive. This big German Shepherd that starts walking with us. Then we walk along these, sort of like the suburb, and I'm going into like detail. It's not important. So essentially, we're going along, and I say that I don't know why every house looks black, or like maybe the people are like, in their houses, or maybe they probably have passed on from the pandemic. Then in the end, it ends with this woman. She takes a tree branch. There's this back lot to this house where there's this pile of dirt, or rather someone has dug this hole. And she says, plant this tree branch in the middle. And then I look down, and then I look up and I kiss her, and that's when the dream ends. So there you go. You go into vivid detail. For some reason, I remember these dreams, they have a lot of detail to them. But I say in this analysis that it's probably some Earth Mother thing in this time of great tragedy. I don't know. It was 2012. I was still reading Jung a lot back in the day. So it's probably where I got that from. So yeah, really crazy, vivid dream. I don't know. I said something about how I fell in love with this woman. I don't know. So did I predict the pandemic, folks? Did I do that? I don't know. Maybe I did. Whoa. Yeah. The German Shepherd is Christ. I never thought about that. Because I thought like it was in one of those like old window displays. It had like the like yellow tape behind it with like this like yellowed light bulb. And I'm like, why is this dog in this window display? And how is this dog still alive without someone feeding it? So I don't know. Maybe I'll post it on Substack, because I do go into vivid detail about it. So this is how Lynch explains films. Oh boy. Anyways, what'd you think of that dream, Prue? Did I predict the global coup? For I don't know, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, to me, it does sound like you definitely are in the midst of an encounter in a time of great trying and great challenge. And I mean, I don't know what you were going through besides reading a lot of Jung in your life. I'm not one. This is outside.
I think it was an undergrad.
This is outside my wheelhouse.
Yeah,
but,
I was in undergrad. So.
I'd imagine at a time of undergrad, all that stuff, trying to find somebody, and at the midst of because I mean, what's happening in 2012? What major events are happening in 2012 in Canada?
Late Obama period. Oh yeah, in Canada. Oh God, I forget, man. It's all a blur. I just remember university. That's
all that really matters,
man,
it
wasn't until like Gamergate that I was hyper aware of like history and being in it. Really, really interesting.
Well, that's something that I always find to be interesting. It's just that for a lot of people our age, right, is that Gamergate sort of signifies that we are in this own niche way. That we are not beings outside of history
exactly
at all. And that for the longest time we what's the word I'm looking for? It like metaphysics says 2012 was 150 years ago. It certainly feels like it.
It does feel like that. Yeah, man, it does. Feels like a totally different world.
It was. I mean,
it was a totally different world. Yeah.
I mean, Obama is still. I mean, the specter of Obama, like in America, where there's some hauntology of him, like will always be around, because like the Dems will always want to repeat 2008, just like the right wants to repeat 2016 over and over.
Yeah,
but like
exactly. Yeah.
To me, the George W. Bush era died not with the evacuation of Afghanistan, not with the 20th anniversary of September 11th, and the 21st anniversary will be later this week.
Oh yeah.
To me, it was 2011 when they did all of the news about Osama bin Laden being killed.
I remember that, and then I remember like Alex Jones had Steve Pachenik on, to say that they raided a mortuary. Like,
Well, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
but I mean, like I was overseas at the time. You know, the American military bases, they have American
Really,
style
eh?
high schools and things like that. And you, for a bunch of us brats, right? You know, we thought like we had just won the World Cup. Like all it was the culmination of
We
like
did it. We got Bin
basically
Laden.
it
Yeah,
was a
yeah.
culmination of basically being spoon fed that narrative for as long as most of us have been alive. You know, like it was surreal to think that, oh, this great evil, this
Yeah.
great axis of evil that you had been told to, it was over, and it was like a coming out of a dream
Was it the
where
Monday after? Because Honeybug Graper says that it was
it
on
was the Sunday.
Sunday.
Yeah, it
I
was the
remember
day
that
after.
night. I remember people partying on the White House lawn.
But it was a
Or
Monday. It was the first
yeah.
day of school, and everyone
Oh,
had
for you in Germany, you
yeah,
mean? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
for painted faces and everything about the news. It was just like, yeah, we had just won the World Cup. Like everything had came true.
Mm,
All of a sudden, like the political era had came to an end because it felt like the vindication of why we went there in the first place. And of course,
yeah.
that's just it's one moment because clearly we were there for another decade. And
What do you think? Do you think they actually got him or no?
I no, I don't. But
He was on dialysis since like 2004. Like it's, you know.
I not to totally yeah, I don't buy a lot of this. Like I grew up with it, and this is why in all of my writings about like growing up in the Bush years, growing up under Obama, and growing
Yeah.
up with like an army brat lifestyle, like a lot of my political evolution is just like looking back on my entire upbringing and my entire life and realizing all of that is bullshit, or at least in
Hmm.
some form or fashion, a very well crafted mind virus for you to buy into it. Because it's like, I know that George W. Bush is a terrible president, or was a terrible president. It was awful on foreign policy. No Child Left Behind was a disaster, despite the idea of equalizing the playing field educationally, because you can make a law, but people are going to cheat. And I mean, that's what happened in El Paso's independent school district. And I look back and I just think, I listened to the speech that he gave at the World Trade Center Ground Zero, where he's like, I hear you, the whole world hears you. And like a part of you, if you grew up with that, like, you know,
Yeah.
especially if
It's
you
really
lived in New
power.
York, it's very powerful. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
And I'm
I get
proud to
very
be an American. Yeah. That's,
basically. I mean,
yeah.
I've seen Toby Keith in concert more times than I care to count because of like MWR stuff. And like, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, but it's all bullshit. Or at least it's all sort of an ephemeral dream. Not to denigrate those who served and gave their lives or anything, because like, Lord knows that, you know, and I've written about this in other places, and I'm probably repeating myself, but it's just like, it all felt like a dream. And like, we were just
Yeah.
finally coming out of it. We're just like, oh, things are different now, and things can get better. You know, this great enemy has been felled, and maybe things can go back to a semblance of normal, but you're a child. And you're thinking, well, that's not true, even though I was in high school at the time. And then, you know, just a year later, after 2012, oh, you know, all of this is wrong. All of the stuff of like the Bush era Patriot Act has finally come home to roost. And of course, the war on terror is always the war at home because power always consolidates. And so you must squeeze out the middle, and you must spy on middle America and use sexual blackmail on congressional Congress candidates. And you must use the IRS to weaponize them. And so again, you're just coming out of a dreamscape. You're taking the red pills. You're finally waking up. And
Yeah. I
you know,
think for
who knows,
me,
Gio? Maybe you did predict the pandemic. Maybe you will find
maybe,
love in the midst of sickness. Who knows?
maybe, hopefully, hopefully with the QT Zoomer Top Sadie. No, I think that I was sort of like I experienced the death of Bin Laden like instantly cynically because I
Yeah.
was in first year uni and I was like listening to Alex Jones, and like immediately that like veil of like, no, actually this didn't really happen. They just like brought him out again so Obama could like win another election or win the midterms or whatever. Like it's I know like Americana,
Well, I
like
remember saying that almost explicitly in high school. I was like, Osama bin Laden died in what was it, May of 2011, right? Like, oh, he's just won re-election. I remember saying that very loudly. I thought there's no way, no matter how bad things get, he can just say I got bin Laden and like he'll win.
yeah, yeah. But that's what I mean though. Like I remember it seems like during the Obama years there was this big like retconning of America. that like in sort of like Obama, his legacy, like the Democrats view him like basically kind of like how conservatives view like Ronnie Reagan, but worse because now he's almost like a quasi-religious figure that like Obama's America was kind of, sort of like the Norman Rockwell painting with like the little black girl. It's like, now it's like about the subaltern populations rising up, and
Well,
it's sort of like
I
how they
mean,
get to piece
how
of
many
America.
how many of those god awful like T-shirts or whatever, right? Like there was
Yeah,
more or less like, Rosa Parks could sit, so like Martin Luther King Jr. could like stand, so Obama could
Obama
run
could
or
walk.
what,
Yeah,
and it's just like, I mean, in retrospect, considering how much of a shit heel that Romney has turned into, maybe him, winning re-election in 2012 was a blessing. But,
maybe.
um,
Yeah, but I think like,
I
but after the Obama, like I mean, after the Bush years, you could understand like why
well, that's
America.
why it's such a surreal moment,
Yeah,
and like this is the interesting thing about how like the political space just evolved, because like you go to 4chan circa like 2009, and it
mm.
is like left libertarianism, sort of like, wow, like, f George W. Bush,
They had
fuck the
Molly posting back
neocons.
then for a
And
reason.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I mean, it was a much more libertarian, lefty kind of place to be. And now it's just basically people go there for like their like international news before it breaks. It's filled with glowies, and it's just as right
did
wing as
you
humanly possible.
did you see that take I screen cap from that god awful account about like how 4chan was just about carefree trolling and there was lefty people and then it got right wing and political and it's like you people are ruining things now for the internet, but you're blaming us for ruining things on 4chan. Like, please get. I think the rightward shift in 4chan was almost inevitable, in my opinion. And
Well,
there
it
were
had
all,
to.
but there were seeds back then. There was a white nationalist contingent of 4chan back in the day. They weren't as big. They weren't like as dominant as they are now. But like, there definitely was there. But I guess to tie it into Francis E. Deck, I think like the fact that people are having nostalgia over like media and like internet happenings, like the Obama internet was definitely much different. As a conservative was terrible. But like as you talk about like 2016, even before 2016, like in 2014 to
Oh yeah,
15.
harmless trolling like Habbo Hotel and pools
Yeah,
closed, making
yeah,
necessary
yeah.
safety Indian Hindu symbols of peace before the pool.
The hacker known as
The hacker known as 4chan is Sam Hyde.
Yeah, yeah. Oh man, imagine if Sarah Palin was vice president. That'd be amazing. Remember when they got Saddam on TV and W came on TV said we got him, Dad? Oh my god.
But no, I can remember that. I was in elementary school, and someone had got, because my teacher had always done like a little like have the class talk about what they see in the news, and one of them brought in a copy of the Stars and Stripes and said we got him, talking about Saddam Hussein, and like you're children, and you don't know any better because you're raised to be
Oh
socialized how
yeah,
your
that's
parents
cool.
do. And like, oh
Have
yeah,
your
we got him. It's great. Oh my god, we won. And
you have
it's
your
just like,
Dunkaroos
and like, and
Catholic
like,
son.
you look back and you're just like, man, if only you fucking knew.
If only we knew, eh? If only we knew how based he actually was. Oh no, I can't say that. Actually, this another $5 super chat is going to ask you. I was going to ask you the question, but now it's
Yeah,
a five.
sure.
Obama Saddam. Remember when like normie cons, like radio hosts like Rush Limbaugh, made a big deal that his middle name was Hussein during
But I mean,
2008? That was
where
a
in
big
the
thing,
hell?
man.
But I mean, it was a big deal. I mean, he's not the first like individual to run for president as a black guy, but I mean, Barack Hussein Obama in the
Mm,
height
mm,
of a
mm.
global war on terror, like
Yeah,
to the boomer conservative like George
that
W.
was
Bush
mind
and
blowing.
McCain voter, that was just like, what the hell has gone wrong with the country? And the very much right thing to ask, because
Yeah,
clearly things have gone wrong. Not to say the W was like golden or anything, but like, holy
I agree with
fuck,
King Salmon Fish over here. By the way, it is true. Even Young had a bout with schizophrenia. So yeah, but you're right. Like to those boomers, like it's oh my god, like that must have been like
It was a big
Barack
deal.
was like those little like
Well,
ethnic
because
kids.
what was I mean his name to begin with? What was that? The whole, even if you disregard whatever your take
Yeah.
might be on like birtherism and things like that, consider the fact that and Jonathan Bowden talks about this excellently in his talk about H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah.
Please go listen to that because it's good. But he mentions this where he's like, you have to understand that the old country, the old America, in the same way that Britain and old Britain is.
The old country, the old America.
Yeah.
The same way that Britain. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically being transformed. It's like America's going through that now. You have a man whose like whole name is just basically an anathema to the history of the American presidents that ran the country up until then. And he's just like, so now you can understand that they're undergoing a fundamental transformation, which was promised by the Obama administration. Fundamental transformation of the country. And
even this week, some guy did a photorealist painting of him still. And
I think it was Billy Pratt that said it was traced.
Yeah, it probably was. I mean, here's the thing. Do you want to know the red pill to me, black pill to most people on photorealism? They are traced. I'll tell you how they're traced. You take a photo, put it in Photoshop, you grid it out to like basically to the half inch or to the full inch. Mm-hmm. And you take a canvas, you map the half inches on a grid network, and you meticulously take different photos in Photoshop in each piece of the painting, and you meticulously trace and try to match the squares. That is how they do photorealism. Okay? There is nothing to it. Photorealism, in my opinion, say what you want about abstract expressionism, say what you want about minimalism, the real death of art is photorealism, because it turns the artist into a photocopier machine. Anyways, besides the point, the big hot take that some nobody professor said on this tweet of the Obama painting was that it's a metaphor for an African-American president in a sea of white, because the background was all white, like a photograph. So yeah, there is you want to talk about intellectual content when it comes to the work of art. There is much more in abstract expressionism than there ever will be in photorealism. Because what can you say? What can you say about photorealism? Oh, it looks like a fried egg. Oh, it looks like Obama. Oh, it looks like a piece of fruit. Like, even a still life, which I do not like. I like in terms of texture, in terms of if it's done right, you can create a narrative with still life, even though it's not my preferred painting medium. But sorry, I'm just fucking ranting right now. I'm sorry.
But I mean, this is
yeah.
To bring it back to the subject of our today's show.
Anyway.
is that how much of that though, right? Like, oh, we're computerized. We become machines ourselves, willing to take orders or to simply just replicate things to where, as our friend Dave the Distributist was talking about in his show the other day, where it is a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, to where now culture has been more or less Xeroxed itself to be nothing more than a black blob that will be constantly reshifted and reshaped to be something that is meant for you to simply follow along and be programmed. And worldwide gangster communist computer god that will put in controls and all sorts of stuff in there. Like we live in that era though. Exactly. We do. And so not to bring in my own aspects of it all, but I just kind of can't help but think of like unseen warfare, and a lot of the stuff that Father Seraphim Rose talked about, just like that stuff's all there, and like, unless you have a watchful eye and a watchful spirit of it all, you're not going to be able to see it. And it becomes very easy to notice in like a practice of just in pure silence and to observe and in prayer, like, oh, there are a lot more things that are wrong right now than anyone could possibly imagine, to where it is very easy to become enslaved in a very algorithmic fashion, to where even the very technology that we use right now to tweet about our takes and to post out there as what was initially a microblogging website is now nothing more than a place for me to be algorithmically addicted to the latest take, retweets, and engagements. Boomers are the same way. It is a way Facebook, in which attentional warfare plays in mind, and it is unseen because we think it is just an absolute part and parcel of our days, because a portal to the unseen and the unknown and the disgusting ways in which mankind is controlled is in our pockets all the time.
Exactly. So Francis E. Deck was right all along. There you go.
Well,
about certain things.
I don't know about the Slovene thing, but maybe.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but
maybe on the idea.
Black, so
yeah, we'd both be black. So.
Yeah. Who is that black pastor? Oh, that was Pastor James A. Manning. Pastor Manning.
Yeah.
New Golf. So let's go to the super chats. There's been a few actually. I'm quite surprised. So read the first one about the Queen Elizabeth dying. So this is the big one right here. This is for $10. Cringe. Wait, no, I gotta do that better. Cringe Walker. I remember my first contact with schizo forums. John Teeter, a part of me is still convinced he was legit. There was actually some things that he did that, like he said that were legit, but coded his predictions, example, China instead of Russia. I miss those days. Above Top Secret. Is Above Top Secret? I think Above Top Secret and Godlike Productions are still around, just that they're ghost towns. But for people who don't know, John Teeter was one of the OG early internet schizoculture figures. He was on forums. He said that he could predict the future. He was from the future, that he traveled back in time. And I believe they interviewed him, not George Norrie. I believe, I can't forget his name. Coast to Coast AM. It wasn't with George Norrie, it was with the original host. Oh God. How did I forget his name? It's, when you just randomly, God, I can't believe I forgot. Can't believe it. The host of Coast to Coast AM, the good one. I mean, George Norrie's all right, but I mean, oh God, Coast to Coast AM. I can't believe I forgot his name, man. He died recently, actually. He died a few years ago. Art Bell. Yeah, Art Bell. He interviewed John Teeter. And I believe some predictions by John Teeter. Yeah, Art Bell died in 2018. Yeah, unfortunately. He moved back to Nevada. I know he lived with his Filipino wife in the Philippines. Or in Hawaii, sorry, he had a Filipino wife. Art Bell, rest in peace. He died in 2018. But I believe
Catherine's Hero. I wonder what...
Catherine's Hero. What is that?
Like Catherine D?
Maybe. Catherine. What is that? I don't want to research.
Catherine's Hero. Interesting.
Catherine's Hero. I have to look that up, actually.
All right, we're going to have to go Google that.
That's interesting. Art Bell, he died in 2018. So, yeah, he interviewed John Teeter, and some of those things, I believe, came true. So, thank you very much, Cringe Walker, for the $10. I'm going to let's find the other.
Oh, he says, yeah, default friend. Yeah. Interesting.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. That's right. Yeah. Default loves Art Bell. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Default actually interviewed John Zerzan recently, the anarcho-primitivist. I thought that was fascinating how she managed to pull John Zerzan, who also was a many regular guest on Coast to Coast. My old man used to be subscribed to Coast. I used to listen to a lot of them. This is my Putana. Putana. Oh my God. Putana for $5. Thank you. I have been IRA maxing for the last 30 minutes, boys. Come ye black and apparently, yeah, how far Sinn Féin has fallen. How far they've fallen. It's not looking good, Irish bros. It's not looking good. So now we have, so thank you very much, Putana. I can't believe I'm saying that, Putana. My God. TB88. TB88. 88. He used to be a BTR regular. Prude talking reminds me of seeing that band Saddam. Yeah, I remember the Saddam death video in late 2000s. I was like, this isn't how I imagine an official state execution.
Because it wasn't. It
wasn't, yeah.
And what was the most surreal thing about that, though? Because, what was it leaked from? It was leaked from, early cell cam footage.
Yeah, on live leaks, yeah.
We talk about, quality, 120p quality
120, yeah. When did you see that first? What year did you?
On the news. They had it on TV.
They had it on the news?
They had it on TV. Yeah, they had it on the news. I distinctly remember watching it on the news.
Oh my God.
Shortly after that video had leaked. The press actually ran with it. I'm sure it didn't show the whole thing, but I remember
they probably didn't show. They showed
shortly afterwards.
In the hole, yeah.
But yeah, no, I remember that exactly. I remember that. I remember some very interesting takes from my dad, to say the least, which does still slip out from time to time.
Really, eh?
Yeah, well, you don't get to hear a lot from people who serve and shit like that, but it's you sometimes
Are
get
these
it.
takes you could say on air, or probably not?
Well, one of them is just basically like an idea is only killed when everyone who believes in it is gone, and I'll leave it at that. But yeah, I mean, it's growing up in that time, and then like watching people I knew my age who grew up in the with the war later than join it and then get injured by it. Yeah, it's surreal just to think
Yeah.
about all the predictions and all the stuff that came out of it. One of these days I would love for us to do something like that, because just talking about like the last 20 years, especially in the Middle East, would be
Maybe next episode of Content Mining.
Yeah, it'd be a good idea.
Because I talked about Afghanistan with my good friend Goran. And
yeah, I know. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I like the nameplay for geopolitics. That was perfect.
yeah. I loved how I brought up the General Betray Us thing, because he was going off on about like how Trump and is
he did that. He did that whole article about how we could have won, or whatever.
Oh
we
God!
had the patience.
Oh my God!
And I'm ready to tear him a new one.
No, but like that's what I mean. Like, oh, we could have won. That's like those neocons. They're like, yeah, we could have won the surge, bro.
That's
like,
my favorite bit though, about like when they do like neocon, like that great comic about like profiling congressmen or whatever. Senator like McBloodsworth from Iowa, who's like in a chair with a bell because he's so old and fat. And he's just like considered a beloved bipartisan. Oh God, please let me just bomb Iran. I want to see the death of millions of innocents right before I die. Please let me do it. Generally moderate,
It's kind of like the Sam Hyde bit where addressed Hannah Kasparian, where he talked about like, I never get any pussy. It's like, please just want to hold it. It's like, I don't even care. I just want to make women feel good. It's like, please just bomb Iran. I don't even care. I just want to make libs feel good. That could be the equivalent.
That's Lindsey Graham at this point.
Yeah, that's Lindsey Graham. I just want to make libs feel good. John Teeter got a new job working for that one thing I can't name on YouTube. I think they probably didn't air the whole thing with him getting hanged.
Yeah, no,
it probably aired.
It was on the news, and it was surreal to watch it just play out on like a national broadcast,
especially having
television
history though, like the whole. Well, we'll talk about it in another episode.
Yeah.
TV. So thank you very much for the $5 TB88. So now we have Comfy Lad. I hope you're very comfy today. 2009 to 13 was comfy for anime and game stuff on 4chan. I did kind of miss the pre-Gamergate era of it. Yeah, before everything became political.
Yeah, before everything got ruined with, it was a time for memes. It was a time for shitting on, new for people who couldn't Triforce properly.
New F slurs.
There was an innocence to that time, despite the fact that it was filled with like the seediest, shit imaginable. makes you nostalgic for a time when Goatsy was fresh.
You could find all sorts of guru and reds on 4chan. The super chat just keep rolling in. New Gloff for $2. Thank you very much. Screw you too. No, I'm doing a bit because people said that Stefan Molyneux did that. The first guy to say screw you to a super chatter was TJ Kirk with he had that totally like drunk stream with Fake Sagan, where Fake Sagan's had the Glock he was waving around, and he told he told off this guy that only gave him $1. People don't realize it's part of internet history, but I remember I watched a Fake Sagan video from 2021, and he's talking about the same stuff. It's so incredibly sad. Anyways, thank you very much, New Gloff, for the $2. Best mid-2000s schizo posters were on Angel Fire. Now, I know that there is an archive of GeoCities sites, but I don't know if there's an archive of Angel Fire. I think you could probably find some. But yeah, I remember Angel Fire. That was pretty based back in the day.
I'm pretty sure it's still out there on file.
Probably.
There's a lot of geo sites or GeoCity places that have a lot of extensive archives from very old forums.
Yeah, there are. Fresh goat's. For $5 again, Cringe Walker. Thank you very much. In total, $15. If you want to be a schizo Reddit hole, look up the speed of light slowing globally in the 40s. Physicists today hand wave it as plagiarizing. What is that about?
Wow.
Speed of light slowing? I know they say that there was a theory, I remember, that space itself is redshifting and how this could have implications on our reality. Or it's stretching. There's not enough matter in the universe. I don't know.
All right, so let's take a looky here. Just
Geocities. Yeah.
All right. Physicists. Let's take a look.
Gio can't read. Typical Med. Oh,
that happens.
Screw you, Ludwig.
I love the first thing because I just Control new tab and incognito tab and started trying out 3 different search ones. The first thing that I get about speed of light slowing down is all the first 3 of them, like Google's, and then like DuckDuckGo, and then
yeah,
and then one more I just have open here. I wish Alta Vista was still around, I'm not gonna lie. But the first one comes from creation.com, Creation Ministries International. About
God, so you know it's right.
Oh, there you go.
No, I'm kidding.
The distant starlight problem, radiometric date, CDK, the history of the idea. Oh man, thank you, Cringe Walker. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole later today.
This is amazing. But yeah, this has been a great stream. Yeah, Francis E. Deck, I think he'll be looked upon through new eyes. There's a whole crop of schizo posters on Twitter and on Telegram elsewhere, and I think we truly live in very hyperstitional times that are primed for the schizopoetics of the shitposter. I think that we live in this era. We live in a golden age of schizopoetics because reality itself is falling apart at the seams. And so I do not look forward to the takes about Queen Elizabeth's death, to tell you the truth. I do not look forward to the salt mines of people gloating. And but anyways, Prude, what do you have coming up next week? Like I said, next week will be the Raw Egg Nationalists. And by the way, it's more of a theory-driven episode. We talked a lot about.
You got one more super chat, Cringe Walker.
Oh, nice. I wasn't even looking. I was zoomed in here. Oh my God, Cringe Walker, you truly are giving out today for another $5. What do you think about the evidence that the Smithsonian brought all Nephilim skeletons in the past to erase it? I agree 100%.
Do you remember that one of those bits from the leaked Hillary Clinton emails where it was talking about like Nephilim caves and stuff in the Middle East?
Yeah,
still out there. Someone sending like SEAL teams out to go try and kill the last of the Nephilim.
I think they're probably out there. In my opinion,
they're out there.
Yeah. No, but the real skulls, it's true. The Smithsonian has been known to damage evidence that is against. I know that Michael Cremo, the Vedic archaeologist, and I know even like more mainstream people like Graham Hancock talk about how a lot of these people, these Egyptologists, for example, they destroy records. So Charlemagne says Ken Ham is a lunatic. Yeah, I never bought into Ken Ham. Here's the thing. Like, I was really big into the theistic evolution thing because I read Francis Collins' book. And I actually lent it to a friend who was from Syria. And I remember he did this thing where he traveled to my province giving funds to the Syrians. And Madge, if you're out there listening, I hope you're safe because apparently he volunteered for a certain conflict in the Middle East, speaking of Syria. But I don't know. That's just rumors. I remember lending him that book. But I don't know. I'm not exactly like a young Earth. I'm not a young Earth creationist.
Neither am I.
Yeah. Kevin Hoven is entertaining. What is Charlemagne? Is Charlemagne Orthodox or is he?
He's Catholic.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go. He's Catholic. Yeah. So yeah, thank you very much, Cringe Walker. I do believe that there probably were giants. Probably. I mean, there's probably enough evidence, but like I said, like I take the Nemitz approach that I think there's more research that needs to be done on certain haplogroups in Africa, for instance. Yeah.
I mean, and the same thing, right? There was that article from The Economist that came out a while back. It's probably, I'll try and dig it up. I tweeted about it a while back, but like about some monk in the 1300s talking about a land further or further west of Greenland, talking about like there's where giants live.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, there's probably quite a bit there.
Yeah. It's I had this joke once about land shark where he said he should become one of those like one of those those Buddhist monks, sages that are preserved and mummified,
Yeah.
but they like still have a heartbeat. And that he said that the Eurasians are going to put it in display. And then I had like I responded to Land Shark. I said that actually that Land Shark's mummified monk cadaver is a powerful weapon, and that the Russians are going to put it in the special what do they call it now? The Museum of War Trophies. That they're going to put it next to the intact HIMARS system. They're going to put Land Shark's mummified monk body next to the HIMAR in the war trophy display.
I like VDR's take here. There were giants. Come on, Gio. I'm looking at one.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Apparently the giants, though, in the steppe, they lived up to like 200 years old or something. I don't know. I have to consult Twitter esotericists about the giant question. But yeah, this has been a great stream. Next week it'll be on Prude's channel. What do you have coming up? So yeah, look out. Next week it will be the Raw Nationalist episode. Someone mentioned Ariel Pink. I should get Ariel Pink on the stream, on content or on this show. Is the Giant of Kandahar real? I think it's probably real. Forgotten mummified land shark. Thank you.
Land Shark's probably one of my favorite Twitter accounts.
Oh yeah. He is one of the only non-perverted Peters out there. I don't know. A lot of Ray Pete followers, they got some sussy vodka vibes going. Like I know. Listen, I know I rag on him a lot. I can click. I know I rag on him a lot, but I'll say no more. So final shilling. Next week, Rag Nationalist, but tomorrow will be the Jenner Review series on Patreon. It will be some of the last 2 chapters of Byung-Chul Han's Psychopolitics. And the next thing I will review will probably be the essay, The Future Without Us. So, final shilling, Prude. You probably have some Patreon or, Subscribe Star exclusive content.
I sure do, but before you do that, you might want to answer your last super chat for the evening.
I have another super chat. Oh, so I keep... Oh my God, George, for $17. Is that 17 pounds?
Sure is. 17.
Oh my God, that's like $19 in Canadian money. Oh my God, thank you so much, Jord. Get John Mouse. Well, that'll be a good thing to get John Mouse. That'd be amazing. So Jord for $70 British pound sterling. I'm trapped under house arrest by the gangster judges. Help, please. Thoughts on Hyperborea, Lemuria, Atlantis, Mer people, etc. Well, I don't know about Mer people, but I think Hyperborea and Lemurian time is real. I think Atlantis probably was a real place. It has enough historical records. But, I mean, I don't know. The Carrot Law is good. Yeah, I agree with the repeat Carrot Law. That's $27 Canadian. Thank you. Oh, my God. In British pound sterling. That's why whenever I have an art commission or someone buys a work of art for me, I always trick them by if they're from Britain, send it to me in pound sterling, the money, or send it to me in American dollars. And they're like, no, I'm going to send you in Canadian dollars. Like, oh my God, you bastard! You have to be woke on the exchange rates. I know it's a little trick. It's a little joke I do. Oh, by the way, yes, for all my patrons, I'm in the process. I have them. I have it all packaged. Either this week, I'm going to finally send off the Patreon rewards for the $20 and $50 tiers. And I pray to God, and listen, the $20 tiers, they're going to repeat. I have in mind an e-zine of woodcuts I want to do. I have an idea. So you will get new woodcuts in the new year. They will repeat annually. So that's a little incentive. I pray to God that there's not going to be a huge hemorrhaging of my $20 patrons as soon as I send you the woodcuts. Oh my God, please continue sending me $20, please. Oh my God. You're going to get new woodcuts, okay? Next year in the new year, please Thank you. So, Prude, do your final shilling.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Pending no last
sorry,
minute.
my old man just dropped off my cat. So,
No, you're good.
yeah.
Pending no last minute super chats. So
pending last minute.
this Sunday we'll be taking a look at Richard Haas's concept of foreign policy beginning at home this Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern, as per usual on the show. Afterwards, on the 23rd of September, I'll be interviewing T.R. Hudson, talking about his latest book, Automaton. Nice. I will have, hopefully, a new Substack out following up on my recent talk about Pedro Gonzalez's points about the dissident right.
Oh, yeah.
Going to be a little more cruel to the establishment, because my friend, our good friend Astral, is right. They will never go far enough to do what actually needs to be done in order to change course. And then not this weekend, but the next weekend. So it's going to be Saturday, the 17th at 12 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to be doing our book club and book review of Imperium Press's Patriarcha and Complete Political Works from Robert Filmer. We'll start with the essay of Patriarcha itself, going over the concepts there about, where power actually comes from and where it can be derived from and who can control it. So that'll be a lot of fun there. And then on Substack, I'm going to be doing weekly articles on foreign policy and foreign affairs. The first one is already out on Substack as Wokeness is Foreign Policy. There will be one tomorrow
I saw
as
that
well on recent issues regarding the relationship between India and China during the war in Ukraine. So please stay tuned for that. And if you're already a patron on Subscribestar, don't worry. If I post something behind the paywall on Substack, you guys get the Word document version of it as well, and other exclusive goodies to come as well. In the meantime, I'm also updating the merch store to include a few more things related to the show and things like that. So all it can be found down below on findmyfriends.net/Prudentialist. You can find me on here, YouTube, Telegram, Twitter, Odyssey, Subscribestar, Buy Me a Coffee, and also Teespring and other places. So your ongoing support is greatly appreciated as I continue to grow, thanks to great people like Charlemagne, Gio, and others.
Nice. I also have a Buy Me a Coffee too. So if you want a one-time donation, and I think I'm going to start paywalling certain articles I have, because when I start writing my book, I'm going to put all chapters, all aesthetic essays on my Patreon. So that's great. Next week, Riot Nationalist. Of course, the whole thing will be on Patreon, the full 2.5 hours or so. We almost went 3 hours, but then he had to go. It was getting pretty late for him in merry old England. And all the links to Prude's YouTube, his Find My Friends, and his Subscribestar. I think I put your Substack. Did I put your Substack? I will next week. Will be on yours, and we'll talk about what the show we're going to do next week on Prude's channel.
I think the going over like the Iraq War and Afghanistan,
that could. There you go.
The Bush years, I think, would be pretty fun.
Write some notes down though. I'm kind of fuzzy with certain details. So,
I can.
Yeah. Oh my God. Not. What about Seraphim? You talking about Seraphim Rose or Sepher, Robert Sepher?
Robert Sepher.
Yeah. Some people say I'd love to talk to Robert Sepher one day. I mean, I know some people say his historical thing is shaky or whatever. I know Charlemagne says Sepher is pretty questionable here, but he's a good dude, Robert Sepher.
This interview alone would be pretty interesting.
Oh yeah. I'd have to go and watch all of his videos though. That's the thing. If I'm not well acquainted with someone's work, I'm kind of I'd like to give myself time to
ingest everything.
Yeah. Because for example, I'm going to be on the New Right podcast probably in either October or November, and I have to read a shit ton of Anais Nin's work for it. So
have fun.
It's going pretty good actually. Her book Erotica of erotic short stories, Delta of Venus, I'm almost done, and one of the erotic stories gets quite Deleuzian about this woman who has casual sex with a serial killer. So, anyways, thank you very much. Next week, very important content mine. And of course, next Sunday, the geopolitical stream with Prude. That'll be great. And all the content will be there. I'm getting back into writing as well. And like I said, next week, I'm probably going to mail out all of your Patreon awards, including some commissions I have, including some woodcuts I have, which I have an announcement on probably about late September and October, about finally not being lazy about this website I have. So looking forward to that, to actually buying my art directly. I know many people have asked me about that. because, you know, DMing people, it's kind of like not very efficient. So God bless you all. Goodbye. Once again, it's been amazing, Prude. Amazing talk. We'll see you all next week.
We're your only hope for the future. Send us your Telegram. Send us everything that you can. Do it now.
And subscribe to my Telegram. I'm almost at 4,000 YouTube subs, please. And are your only hope for the future. Send us both money or a manual typewriter. God bless. Goodbye. Sweet. Ending, bro.